Welcome to the Visual Cast. I'm your host, Alon Hammer, aka Rem. The Visual Cast is a hybrid podcast where we interview some of the most unique, interesting, high-level, and exciting artists from all over the world. Entering into Season 2, we will be starting a monthly live stream to our paid subscribers. To join in on the live stream with Q&As, polls, and some surprises, click on the join button below. Your subscription will massively support our channel and bring us further to creating a community of like-minded individuals who love, create, and immerse themselves with the visual arts and the visual world. For those unable to join financially, don't worry. The episode, like all of our episodes, will be available on Thursdays for everyone to watch. And if you want to support us, like and subscribe and share with anybody you think will enjoy the podcast. I really hope you guys enjoy this episode. Now, without any further ado, here's the Visual Cast.
The world is like a ride at an amusement park, and it's fun for a while. Some people have been on the ride for a long time, and they begin to question, is this real, or is this just a ride? And other people have remembered, and they come back to us, and they say, hey, don't worry, don't be afraid, ever, because this is just a ride.
Special guest, a friend, a super high level and high performing visual artist. Welcome to the podcast, Wayne Ellis.
Hey Rem, nice to see you, bro.
What's up, dude? It's been a while. I think when did we meet in Modem? And was it 2020?
2 years ago.
2023? Really? It was 2 years ago?
2023. Yeah, I think it was the first and last time I saw your face in the booth. We rubbed shoulders briefly. I sneaked a peek at your live touch designer rig. And yeah, I think it was a changeover. I think you were changing over from my set on the Hive.
I was. Good times, man. 2023. It feels so long ago for some reason. I guess time flies when you're playing at Modem. I don't know what the thing would be there, but yeah.
Right.
Yeah, you've since then you've done some pretty outstanding things. I'd love to take a look at some of your work here on your Instagram while we kind of get acquainted with your work. Wayne is you obviously can speak for yourself, but I will speak just a little bit. But Wayne is a really prolific artist. I mean, you do tons of works, and you've been doing works for a really long time. I think your focus on AI maybe is really an interesting kind of topic to talk about. It's kind of like you've been pretty much doing it for way before the AI boom, we can call it maybe.
Right.
Yeah. And I guess back then it was called something else, right? Like machine learning or like whatever, like deep dream, stuff like that.
Exactly.
But before we talk about the AI specific and just visuals, you've been working a lot with Daniel Popper for a while now, and I'm a huge fan of Daniel Popper. I think probably most people are. I just kind of wanted to ask, like, what is it like to work with like a legend like that? Kind of while we're going through your work, and please feel free to take it wherever you want, but just as like just an intro kind of conversation.
Yeah, sure, man. Is that for me? The text is inverted. Is that inverted for you, or is it
just on your end? Just on your end. I'm sorry.
Okay, interesting.
I could fix that.
No worries. That's all good. Yeah, Daniel and I have been kind of collaborating since 2014. So we're going on 11 years now. And
amazing.
Yeah, our partnership sort of happened spontaneously at our Burning Man, which is Africa Burn.
Nice.
It's the second biggest burn in the world. And yeah, I was out there with a crew called the Leadheads, and these guys had retrofitted a double-decker bus, to be like a moving venue, a moving party bus. And they brought me on to map it out there in the desert. And what they did is they actually constructed a 3-meter high replica of R2D2, and we stuck the 14K projector in his head, and we had the beam coming right out of his eye and mapping things. And just that alone, even before pumping visuals out through that was just such a treat.
And so,
awesome. Yeah, I met up with Daniel in the desert, and I think we were both on bicycles or something, and we knew each other, not very well. And he asked if we could just pull in at his sculpture. He'd done a
Mm,
sculpture called Reflections,
mm.
which is like this giant man coming out of the ground. And we were like, cool, let's do it. And it was a Wednesday night, and we showed up there with R2D2, pulling him through the desert, and just started just started spontaneous. I mean, it was quite a ride, man. The kids were trying to fill him up with like soda pop because we convinced them that he runs on soda pop. And yeah, it was the night before we burnt his piece. So there was like one night to go before the piece would be burnt and gone
Mm.
forever. And I just had some 3D heads that I mapped onto it in something called Quartz Composer, like a very
Oh
early
yeah, back in the day.
node node based thing that ran natively on the Macs. And we just did a spontaneous jam, and I remember it was like just me and him basically enjoying each other's company with thousands of other people around. But
That's
that was
awesome.
where we formed like quite
A
a bond and
connection.
quite a brothership. Yeah, and it went from
Amazing,
there.
dude. That's so awesome, and that's so great. Like I can't even imagine like an R2D2 projecting onto a huge sculpture. Like it just must have been such a trippy, such a Burning Man esque experience. You know, like
Yeah, it was
it's
super
so
Burning
funny.
Man. Yeah, yeah, it was awesome.
I love it. I love it. Yeah, I mean, you've been doing such cool stuff with him. I mean, you're doing cool stuff in general. Here's some. I think this is from Modem a little bit. But just like you
Yeah, this
know,
is yeah, this is his piece at Electric Forest actually, or this
oh yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Look at that. It's so funny. It
this
looks.
this might
It's
have
like
been at
similar.
Ultra. I can't remember. Yeah, it's yeah. This piece was a hell of a thing to map. I mean,
I
modular,
can
and
imagine.
I think
I can
60
imagine.
pieces altogether. And I think this one is at Miami Ultra. But when we
Hmm.
did it in Electric Forest, we mapped it in 360 wraparound with three
Nice.
projectors.
This is
And
just
yeah,
one
that
projector?
was this one's two
Wow.
projectors.
Okay, two for
But
just
at
the two
Electric
sides.
Forest, we did a
The full.
360 wraparound mapping, and yeah,
Nice.
that was crazy.
Hell yeah. That's awesome. I mean, I just like, it's so funny, like just scrolling through your work. You have so many pieces. It's just, it's quite I mean, I'm inspired by it, but it's like, it's just so much. It's
Right.
I can't think of the word right now, but it's like it's daunting like how much work it is. I mean, and it's like, okay, even though you're generating things from AI, you still have to render them. There's still time and compute power, and you have to like to think of an idea. Like in some ways prompting is even more daunting than like going into like a 3D software and making stuff, because you actually have to have like kind of like a full on idea before you even know what it's gonna like be. Here's some
Right.
modem
Yeah.
stuff.
Yes, here's some modem stuff. That AI stuff you were on earlier was back in the day when AI was quite fresh, and it
Mm,
was kind of a wave coming. The
mm,
wave kind of really started around September 2021,
mm.
and I
Yeah.
got on the bus around January 2022. And
Oh,
you had
interesting.
to hack your way to get it working. It was like a lot of Python code. There was no type your prompt in a box and hit generate. It was like
Right.
figure out how this works and debug it until it runs. So and it would take days, man. It would take like 7 minutes to render one frame. So
No,
you
no,
were
like stream diffusion vibes. It was all like super
mm,
slow, huh?
super slow running on Google Colab, and yeah, just
Mm,
kind of having three or four
interesting.
Gmail accounts going at once and hopping between them as you hit the limit. Yeah.
That's awesome. Are you like code inclined? Are you technically inclined, or is it just kind of nerdiness, classic nerdiness, just
Yeah,
brute
classic
forcing
nerdiness.
things?
I come from a sound engineering background, so that
Okay.
sort of signal flow and troubleshooting and like figuring stuff
Okay.
out, reverse
Right.
engineering, that sort of all plugged into the visual world as I
I
got
love this
going with it.
piece. It's so crazy.
Thanks,
Man,
man.
these old, they're not like old, but it's like, whatever, 2 year old. These like zooms. I
Yeah,
remember like seeing the zooms at the beginning was so like, oh, this is actually pretty cool. And then obviously we got extremely oversaturated with it, over time. But
right,
I think the earlier stuff was like so interesting to see, like what is capable of, what is it capable of? It was almost like it was almost its own style. It was almost like you're not really getting anything coherent yet, but like the
Exactly.
shapes and feeling and the general energy. Like you look at this and it's like, okay, I don't see a shaman, but I get that it's like, I get what it is. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like I don't know, the being able to get that infinite zoom kind of, or even like a lot of things were like here, like this, like the morphing, like that
Yeah,
morphing
the
thing
GAN.
at the
Yeah,
big. Yeah, it was so cool because it was like you can't do that really any other way. Maybe there's like some crazy After Effects plugin that can do it, but it's gonna be really manual. And this was like such a cool effect, and I guess, well, for you it was a lot of effort at that point. Um, but oh, this
yeah.
one,
So
I love this
this was
one.
Boom. Yeah, this was Boom Festival. This is actually me flying my drone. On one
Nice,
of the mornings, I captured this with photogrammetry. There was
nice.
a French VJ there. His name was Francois, a real like proper nerd, like super nerd. And he just casually said to me the one day, "Why don't you do photogrammetry on this thing?"
Mm,
And
yeah.
I was like, "Hey, what's that?" And then so I had to figure it out on the fly. But it
Hell yeah,
really, yeah, changed the game because there was no 3D model for this sculpture. It was made out
for
of
sure.
reclaimed materials and just kind of spontaneously made on site with what was there.
Mm.
So yeah, what you're looking at there is like a point cloud essentially
Yeah,
rendered into
yeah.
a mesh.
So cool. That's awesome. I love photogrammetry. Wait, are most of Daniel Popper's models, are they um like in 3D? He designs them in 3D?
Yeah, so he does design them in 3D.
Oh, I didn't know
Sometimes
that.
they turn out a little differently to how they're designed based on,
Right.
real world building constraints.
For sure.
But the longer we've worked together, the more the 3D model kind of you can rely on it to do your pre-production
That's
and get
so good.
started.
It's so useful. It's a tough one when it comes to a lot of stage designers and I'm not even stage, just like sculpture designers. Oh, this is crazy too. Stage designers and sculpture designers. It's like, there's like the catch 22 of like, is it gonna be accurate to the design? But then it's like the designer's constrained to whatever he made or she made, and then the guys or girls that do like found wood, or found like reclaiming stuff, or even local, it always has like a different feeling, the sculpture, but it's always like
Yeah,
impossible to map. You have to like just do like a photogrammetry is what we usually do, to get those stages that you don't know. And then
right.
it's like scrambling on site to kind of like make content for it. It's always like a crazy thing.
Yeah, so this was back in the days of NFT when NFT was
Yeah.
like, the thing.
Mm,
2021, I think
of
2022.
course.
And we were, yeah, this is with me and the Delta Process team, kind of collaborating on a modem NFT with Daniel.
Mm.
And yeah, it was wild. It was like I was learning Octane for the first time. I was figuring out how to do these crazy 3D renders, and yeah, it was a good time.
Okay, so you're not just the run of the mill nerd. You're actually like pretty smart and capable. If you can just like pick up a software in a few days, especially one like Octane, I think that's pretty impressive. Like, is that just been kind of your workflow forever? Like, just here's a cool piece of thing, I'm gonna learn it.
Kind of, but I mean, I wouldn't say I know much more in Octane than just enough to be dangerous with it, you know. So kind of, I'm more kind of reverse engineering things that I'm finding online and figuring it out that way.
Hmm.
But at the end of it, I just found Octane was just too render intensive for me for the
Yeah.
work I wanted to do,
Yeah.
especially these tight turnaround mapping jobs where you got to come up with a
Right.
lot of content in like a day or two.
Fast. Yeah. Yeah.
Octane was a tricky one for that, yeah.
Mm. Really cool. So is this already Deep Dream back
This
here?
is this is very yeah, this is very early style transfer. This is taking
Style
an
transfer.
ayahuasca pattern and
Mm.
style transferring it onto a jaguar, like a real jaguar picture,
Mm.
with very rudimentary like early techniques of style
Movements.
transfer. So yeah, quite rough and ready, but it's only gotten better as time's gone on.
Yeah, I mean, like, even looking at it now, knowing that it's like, like 240 weeks, it's like almost 4 years. Like, even
Yeah,
though it's still like it's still impressive, because of like just the way that it's kind of produced. I don't know, like the style transfer was always so cool to me. And that's kind of like the GAN, like being able to morph those things. But that,
Yeah.
just like that simple style transfer thing was so cool because it just opened up so many possibilities to do cool things fast, and you
Yeah.
didn't, and there wasn't like that kind of like, I mean, I guess the technical knowledge is like in a different place because you have to know how to use like all the Google tools and stuff, but like you didn't have to have the knowledge of like Photoshop and After Effects, like deep After Effects stuff, which is sometimes difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember the style GAN was so fun. So cool. Okay, well, I mean, we could like scroll on your Instagram forever at this point. You have so much work. How many posts do you have here? Let's see. What do we got?
I'm not sure, man.
650 posts. Come on, guy. That is impressive. That is impressive. Um, so just kind of jumping on that kind of, you being this very intelligent and smart person, I'd love to kind of get your, your history a little bit. I know you grew up in South Africa and you're self-taught, which is such an interesting kind of revelation about you. Give us a little bit about like what it was like kind of growing up in South Africa. How did it shape your love for visuals, your love for art, your love for creativity in general? And then, give us a little bit of like, okay, how did you get into this whole kind of like graphical world?
Right. Well, I mean, you could kind of broadly split my life up into two parts. The first half of my life, I grew up in Johannesburg, and I was there. And every time I took a trip to Cape Town and got on the plane to come back home to Johannesburg, I felt like I was flying the wrong way. Like I felt like I was not, I was not at home, and something was up. So I was working in IT. I was a network engineer, and that kind of cubicle corporate job definitely felt like it had a time limit to me. So at age 23, I packed it all up and moved everything down to Cape Town and studied to be a sound engineer. And I thought, I was DJing at the time, had been DJing from vinyl for a couple of years, and we're moving on to CDJs now. And I thought, well, now the next step is to play parties, play festivals, and to produce music.
Mm-hmm.
So I studied sound engineering for a year, qualified, got better at production, reached that moment where I'd finally released a track, a progressive trance track, onto a label under the name Blue Nova.
Wow.
And I had this moment just upon like releasing that track and seeing it go live, and I was like, well, what now? You've got to get 10,000 hours under your belt to master something, and there's like 100,000 other guys that have already got their 10,000 hours ahead of me, and there's a lot of fish in this pool. And we were going to parties, we were going to festivals, and the visual style back then was just very abstract. Guys were showing up with their big desktop PCs and those square CRT monitors.
Wow.
And just very like screensaver style visuals.
Yeah.
There was nothing like literal or narrative that you could kind of latch onto in a festival. And so with a friend of mine, we started an act called Afterlife Visual, my friend Craig. And we started doing AV sets. Like there was almost nobody doing visuals that had like a narrative and a kind of theme to it. And there was pretty much nobody doing audio-visual sets where the music and the visuals were programmed to go together. So we started doing that, and it took off.
What year is this? Sorry?
This is 2005.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, so we started playing at Vortex parties. There were some Origin parties. I don't know if you've heard of those.
Yeah, it's in
And
South Africa, yeah? Origin, I've heard of.
Yeah, in South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Origin's like, I would say, one of our flagship festivals. We just done our 20th anniversary with them.
Oh, wow.
And so it grew from there, and it grew to a place where in 2010 we were approached to do a architectural mapping at our waterfront for Wrigley's gum. They were launching 5 gum in our country.
Nice.
And they'd seen our work, and we'd been mapping on the festivals and doing what we can. But now it was time to map a building and do it seriously. And we took this on, and it was a heck of a learning curve.
Yeah.
But it was successful, and it was that was kind of the turning point where I was like, okay, this can turn into a full-time thing for me. Yeah.
So cool. So there's a few things there I would love to kind of jump into. So you originally started as a musician, or I guess
Yeah.
a DJ or a producer. Was this something that you kind of were always interested in as a kid? Like, were you inclined in that kind of creative expression? And where did that come from? Is that like somebody from your, in your circle, your family? Like, why music? Like, what was the pull towards music in that earlier stage of yours?
Yeah, I guess just getting into our rave scene was kind of blossoming around 1995. All the big parties were finally coming to our shores, and we're having these massive underground raves, and you could just see, the scale at which it was happening. And I was just naturally interested in playing music, and
Mm.
I had one of those like double tape deck hi-fis with like the CD player combo, and it had the three-band graphic equalizer on it, and I was like cutting the bass every 8 beats, and like getting into it that way. And yeah, it just grew into a love for music, and
Mm.
eventually getting the chance to spin some vinyl and falling in love with that,
That's
matching
awesome.
beats and playing to crowds. Yeah.
You always kind of like had this creative inclination, like that you wanted to do something that was, outside of the quote unquote norm. Like you wanted to do something that was it the rave scene that pulled you in, or was it just you were inclined to just not want to do, you know what I mean? Like when
Yeah.
you're young, you kind of think to yourself, okay, this is what I'm going to do in my life. I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to do this and that. Creatives are like, I don't really care. I just want to do this thing that I love, you know? Um, was it like that, as simple as that for you when you were younger?
Yeah, it was as simple as that, and working at like a very boring corporate job, and having the rave scene to sort of look forward to on the weekends was the impetus, and
Mm.
yeah, making mix CDs and handing out your demo CDs and trying to land gigs at clubs and that whole thing. So yeah, I
Interesting.
started with a crew. A friend of mine in 1999, he invited me to play at one of his parties and played my debut set on vinyl there. And yeah, I just never looked back. And DJing is
Really?
still a passion. It's still a love. I only play like once or twice a year now.
Mm.
But that love for music and that kind of understanding on how to mix beats together really plugged perfectly into VJing, because when you're
Of
VJing, you want to
course.
try and be 2 or 3 steps ahead of the music, and anticipate that big moment that when it comes, you can be ready with your next visual.
Of course. Yeah, the understanding music is huge. I think nowadays it's a huge underappreciated thing. Like people kind of think, okay, yeah, I can kind of follow a beat, and yeah, I guess you can for some styles of music, but there are many styles of music that are, knowing or understanding the trajectory of how a track is kind of like gonna be is super valuable. Um, Okay, so it's interesting because I feel like the people that are rave inclined, or whatever, like in part of a scene from a young age, there's like this really strong want to be part of that scene because of, like you said, like it gave you so much. Like on the weekends, you'd go and you'd kind of feel like, okay, I'm finally feeling myself. So you want to be part of it, which I think is like a very kind of like a very normal or a very yeah, like that I had the same experience, where it was like, okay, I want to be part of this scene. How do I be part of it? I started doing photography, started doing after films and stuff like that, started promoting, and then
Right.
I'm like, okay, this is kind of like just as bad as being in like a whatever corporate thing. Visuals kind of made their appearance to me, and that was like, okay, I can be part of this scene like this. um, so I really like that kind of you have this passion, you have this love, and then you're like, hey, well, how can I fit my other passions, other loves into this big sphere of passion and love? And I think it works out pretty good most of the time for people. So that's really cool. So I guess you kind of skimmed on it, but I want to just like press on a little bit because it's so interesting to hear the and I don't want to call you old or anything, but the older generation's experience when it comes to visuals and getting into visuals. Um, and you look great, by the way. So I wouldn't even assume that you were raving in the '90s. But
Thanks, bro.
what was like the first kind of visual VJ thing that you saw that was kind of like, oh wow, this is crazy. I want to do this as well. And like before you even realized that it was a career path, like before you even got the, the architectural stuff, like how did you understand to integrate it into the scene? Like what was the connection there?
That's a great question. So, I mean, initially, just basically approaching visuals like you would decks, like DJ decks. So, this friend of
Mm-hmm.
mine, Craig, he had landed a sponsorship from Korg, and they had one of those Korg Chaos pads out at the time, and
Oh
he had the little
man, those
Korg
are so
mixer,
cool.
he had the Chaos pad, and we were running two little portable DVD players into it. And we were running like nature documentaries like Blue Planet and Planet Earth and all of those things, and running it through the Chaos Pad and, playing with the hue, playing with the mirror tile effect, running a bit of Resolume in there as well. This was like in the days when 640 by 480 was, a real high def thing.
Yeah.
And starting to layer things in a way that it kind of told a story, so you
Mm-hmm.
would have some underwater scenes and you would have some tracks that had kind of an underwater feeling in our AV
Mm.
sets. And then also if a track had some vocals in it, we also just like would take vocals from our shaman friend who we used to sit in
Mm.
ceremonies with. We took
Hell yeah.
recordings of him, like, preaching his wisdom. And
Right.
then we would mirror some of the words he was saying, like infinite possibilities and
Oh,
Dharma
cool.
and things like that. And we would bring text up onto the screen. So
Mm.
you would have the experience at a party of seeing the visual, hearing the words, and seeing the text come up on screen. And for me, that was quite a powerful combo, to start to construct a narrative around the visuals. So that was just, approaching it from a very hands-on place and
Mm-hmm.
seeing what mixed well together and seeing how you can tell a story and keep it interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But in terms of mapping, two guys were doing really cutting edge stuff. It was Amon Tobin. He had his cube set. I
Mm.
think it was around
Yeah.
about 2008 that he had that,
Yeah. Yeah.
and that was
It's
just
every.
that was just next level killer,
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
another guy called Etienne de Crecy. He VJ'd inside a cube that was made out of scaffolding and had layers and layers of mesh, and he was projecting very simple geometric squares and triangles and things through this cube, and he was in the middle playing, and you could see the depth effect, you could see the echoes, you could see the feedback. So it was kind of like seeing these guys bringing these live installation style shows onto the
Mm.
scene as it made it onto our shores. That
Mm-hmm.
really got me thinking of mapping and how you map things, and yeah, it went from there.
Interesting. Very interesting. And sorry, but what what was the impetus? What was the catalyst? Like you get the Korg, you're starting to mix, you're fine, like you want to do more narrative, but like what was the switch in your head that was like, okay, I want to try and do this? Was it just you were just experimenting with friends, like hanging out?
Yeah, experimenting with friends, just doing it for ourselves, really, to
Mm,
entertain ourselves and see how
mm,
trippy we could make it, hanging
uh,
out together, doing things,
interesting.
but also just seeing the potential and realizing that, at least in our scene, there was nobody else doing
Something
it.
doing.
It was
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah,
it was
yeah.
super niche, and we started pushing the boundaries in terms of what we were projecting onto textured things. So you get this kind of 3D effect as it lands on the thing, projecting
Right,
onto
right, right.
bodies, and yeah, going from there.
Man, South Africa's cool, dude. Like you could just fuck around and like you still get like all the cool stuff from the rest of the world, but it's like okay, we're actually doing some. We can try like an experiment with things and fill in like a niche. Like I love that. That's so cool. Really interesting. It's always so fun to hear like, yeah, we had a Korg, we had CRT screens, yeah, we were mixing the hues on the thing, and I just
Yeah.
love that. And I guess you're coming from like a music, so like your integration of what is quote unquote cool to do with visuals, kind of you get that from like sound, right? From like sound design or like DJing, like when you're DJing, like a good DJ, right, is going to play with the mids, going to play with the highs, going to play with the lows. It's such micro kind of things that make such a huge difference in the actual experience. And it's like also a lesson of like, don't go too much with it, right? Don't make the effect too high because then it's going to
Hmm.
ruin like the source material, which is like such a
Yeah.
good kind of like understanding for like a VJ, especially like back then when you have very rudimentary things that you can do, right? It's like, but if you crank
Yeah.
up something too much, you're gonna get like white, or if you crank up something too much, it's gonna be, broken or something, which I guess is cool. But there's like that understanding a little bit of like what's gonna work in what way. So cool, and I can't wait to talk to you in our second portion about ceremonies and shamans and kind of that whole world, because that's definitely something that we cross for sure. Okay, so let's kind of continue a little bit. So you're getting this, you got this Wrigley gig, this commercial gig. It must have been like, holy shit, like I can actually make a career out of this. Must have been like a crazy feeling.
Yeah.
And also like all your DJ friends, like there's no parallel, right? Like they're not getting a Wrigley's gum gig, There's no like parallel for music, really.
Well, there's one exception. I mean, we did pull in some friends of ours. You may have heard of them, I don't know, but they were on the Nano Records label, Commercial Hippies.
Sounds super
Gareth,
familiar.
Psytrance producers, Anton and Gareth, and we wanted to build for ours so that we collaborated on the Wrigley's thing. We did our own pack of animations,
Hell
and
yeah.
we worked with a studio in France. And it was actually very cool. What they did is they turned once we'd constructed the 3D model of the building we were mapping onto, we sent it to them as an asset, and they built a website out of it so that consumers could go onto the website and do their own mapping on this virtual version of the building.
Wow.
And then the whole draw card was come to the waterfront, come
To
to the real
see.
building, and see if your little mapping performance gets played.
That's so cool.
So that was quite a cool implementation. And then our friends from the Commercial Hippies built us 5, I don't know what you call it, like Psy House tracks. And we got them to break it up into stems for us. So we had drums, bass, synths. And yeah, we commissioned them to create these 5 tracks for us. So we had some backing tracks to jam to when we were jamming our own stuff onto the building.
Well, that's so cool.
So
So there was
yeah,
a little bit of a mix there. I love that. I
there
love
was a
that.
little bit of music producer jumping into the corporate mapping gig moment there. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's so
Yeah.
cool. So what is the VJ scene like now, and how does it in South Africa, and how does it kind of like compare to the early VJ scene that you kind of pioneered? Maybe not like as far back as we were talking about now, but maybe like when you're starting to see visuals at parties, probably like mid thousands, right? Like 2005, 6, 7, I would imagine.
Mm.
And then how does it look like now? Like, what is the kind of trajectory of the VJ scene like in South Africa?
Yeah, it's grown to be quite huge, actually. There's a large pool of VJs. And during our summer season, there's festivals every weekend, and most
Mm.
of the time there are stages being built with the intention of them being mapped.
Mm-hmm.
So it's quite cool. In the beginning, it was very novel, and we were pioneering it in a way, myself and my
Mm-hmm.
friend Craig.
Mm-hmm.
And more and more people saw us doing it, and we actually ran some courses for it at one of the
Mm.
music schools here, and
Oh, that's
taught some
awesome.
VJing, taught some people how to do some basic stuff with VDMX.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, Mad Mapper wasn't even invented back then. And but as the tools have developed, and as all of these different, I think there's like now there's 100 different VJ softwares you can choose from.
Totally.
Yeah, the scene grew, and now there's an active scene here. There's lots of VJs.
Are you seeing like a influx of, how do I phrase this? But are you seeing like an influx of like the same thing that you were seeing with yourself, like experimentation, people trying different things, or is it more like there's a scene, there's work, people are kind of like doing what they should be doing, like where is the scene? Like, is it blown, like, you know what I mean? Like, is it blowing up in terms of like there's a lot of people, or is it blowing up that like the people that are in the VJ scene right now are doing, really cool different types of stuff?
Yeah, there's a range of stuff and a range of places where it gets used. It's not only the festivals and that. It's in the clubs as well. One of the jobs we did, I want to say 2011, was a launch of a new Volvo truck, and they like every 20 years or something they relaunch their flagship truck. So we were hired to map onto the truck. It also happens in theatre. A lot of mapping happens in theatre and commercials as well. So there's lots of different applications for it, and we have a couple of light festivals here every year. Not at the kind of level and standard that you see in like some of those Japan,
Right.
those labs parties, and in
Yeah. Oh
Europe.
wow. Mm.
But there is definitely a scene for like outdoor experimentation, projection onto trees, yeah, all sorts of things. So it's not just limited to the festivals, but there's a lot of visuals happening here, and there's like for example, there's one festival. It's a gamers conference that happens every December called Playtopia. I was trying to book projectors for a festival one year, and they said, "Sorry, we just sent all of our 20 projectors to Playtopia, so there's no projectors left from these guys." Um, so yeah, the theater aspect is quite cool as well. I did a adaptation of Mozart and Salieri with the director, and it was the first. He told me it was the first theater production he'd done where there was absolutely no set. So there was no set built. All the set was projected digitally, and we did it onto this this strand, like a projection sheet that was made out of strands of fiber, so that when you projected on it, it showed you your image, and when you backlit it, you could see behind it, and performers appeared through the projections, and
Cool.
the whole thing was choreographed to work with the mapping, and there wasn't a single piece of set. So
That's so
yeah, that
cool.
was quite fun. Super
That's really
stressful,
fun.
but good. Yeah.
Why stressful? Why stressful? Just the turnarounds?
Well, no, just you're in a packed theater full of people who have paid to come
Ah,
and see a
gotcha.
ballet, and
Gotcha.
the visuals and the audio are all coming out of your machine, man. And you're just sitting there. I mean, you're running a backup in parallel with your button on the hot switch, but you're sitting there for an hour knowing that the whole show's coming out of your machine. So hope it goes well.
So, what's so funny about that is like you've performed, in festivals for like tens of thousands of people, and it's like, the stress levels are high when you go to do a festival, but it's like such a different thing of like, yeah, if I crash or I stutter, it's kind of cool. It's part of the music, it's and nobody's gonna notice. It's part of the music, and
Right,
then you're in like a
right.
packed theater in front of like a few hundred people, but like the stress level is so much higher because if there's a stutter or there is a crash, they're gonna notice. It's
That's it.
like
Yeah, that's it.
it's so funny. That's so funny. Wow, cool. So you're doing a lot of really like interesting things outside of just festivals and visuals. What other, before we kind of move, I want to move into a little bit of software kind of talk, but what other cool stuff have
Sure.
you been doing recently? And maybe give us a little bit of a, insight into kind of the workflow or the process. And please feel free to take it wherever you want, just to kind of interesting.
Yeah, sure. Two interesting ones I've had this year. The one was I did a projected backdrop for a Polish beer commercial out
Nice.
in our winelands. They hired out a big barn, and they wanted to have this like very wireframe, very kind of digital looking Tron inspired castle scene in the background.
Hmm.
And part of that was capturing with photogrammetry the pillars that they had in this space that they were shooting
Uh-huh.
the commercial in, and then
Uh-huh.
wireframing those pillars and integrating them into the scene. So that was such an interesting process because I only really got the director's vision on the day when I was
Wow.
trying so hard to be brief, but there was the language barrier. I was going through an agency,
Hmm.
and as much as I could have prepared 100 different looks, I only really clicked with his vision like on the day when we were starting to shoot,
Interesting.
and we fine-tuned it. So I mean, at the end of the day, it went really well, but it was just crazy because I had a 20K projector in there with a very short throw lens.
Hmm.
And for one of the scenes, they brought a horse in there. This guy rides in on a horse and has a drink of this giant mug of beer. And, this horse is literally like a couple centimeters away from my projector, which is sitting on the ground. And I'm just praying that this horse doesn't get a fright. So that was super interesting, super
That's
cool.
awesome.
I loved working with that crew. And then a couple of months later, I worked with the Elro crew. I don't know if
Yeah,
you know about Elro, the
of
Spanish
course.
guys.
Yeah.
And they were there for the launch. They launched a new club called Universe in Ibiza.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this club had a 23-meter by 9-meter high LED wall at the back.
Yeah.
Super duper high res. Oh, you've got it up there. Yeah. So
Yeah.
just being in the control room of that place was like a proper spaceship.
Hmm.
But leading up to the gig was around 2 months of content design. especially to fit the screen, especially to fit there's Fede from Delta Process. You might see him there. He's actually running
Yeah.
the mapping right now.
Nice.
Yeah, just a very bespoke content design to hit their brief and to work with that screen and the other surfaces in the club and integrate well with the mapping that Delta Process was doing. And yeah, it was just a crazy experience. Really, really good. But yeah, it tapped all my resources, and by the
I can
end of it, I
imagine.
needed a good come down session.
Nice. Were you on site? You took this video?
Yeah, this is on site. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, cool.
So
Yeah, I heard a bunch about this from multiple. I mean, there's so many people that worked on it. I spoke to Bjorn about it a little bit, and
right, Bjorn was there. Yeah.
what's his name? Who ran the LEDs? Aron. It's super interesting to hear like kind of all the different aspects of what was going on here.
Yeah.
And like I love the, it's like a little bit businessy, but I love the concept of like, as far as I understood, like you guys basically kind of gave them, like you built the system for them, gave them the content, and now they're just kind of running it week to week, right? Based on like
Yeah.
the stuff that you guys made for them, which I think is such a cool idea. I wish more festivals or whatever clubs would take that kind of as a good kind of alternative,
Yeah.
because you get best of both worlds. You're getting the high end, high quality, high experience, high level artists kind of coming in, testing it out, making sure it works, building all the systems, the workflows, the signal flows. And then it's like, okay, well, we're not going to come here every week to do this. And also we don't need to, right? Because once it's built, once it's done, then, not anybody, but a VJ, a competent VJ can operate.
Right.
So, and it kind of, yeah, I just think it's a really cool way of doing things. And I think it probably helps with budgetary restrictions and kind of like, fitting into a kind of like a bigger global sense. But there's like an education thing, like I really would love to know who sold this whole thing, because it's like, educating the client of like, this is what you need to do. You need to bring in the best people to build the system for you and build the concept for you, and then run it later with whoever. Because I think a lot of times what would happen is like they'd bring in the best people and then not have that kind of idea of like, okay, we're going to bring in the best people and then leave it as it is and then run it. They would either bring in the best people every week and then it would be too expensive, so maybe they wouldn't bring in the best people. They would always be these kind of like holes in the kind of planning.
Yeah.
So I think the way they did it was really smart.
Yeah, I wish I could have gone back to operate it again,
For sure.
For me, 2 days flight or 2 days flying to get there. And then, the long setup, the recovery, flying back, I had an issue with my plane and I was stuck in Rome for an extra 24 hours. So
Oh man.
yeah, like I operated that first gig with Fede and he was long back at home and I was like, dude, I'm still traveling,
stuck.
So it took
Oh
me
no.
2.5 days to get home. And, for someone coming from Europe or some of the operators were from Spain, it's like an hour in the plane, you hop in the plane after lunch and you're there. So yeah, being in South Africa does have its ups and it also does have its downs,
For sure. I guess Karen Dixon is also another amazing collaborator of yours and just amazing artist.
Right.
Yeah, shout out for sure.
Yeah, shout out to Karen. She was the art director. She is one of the art directors for Elro. So I was chatting to her from around about January this year about the direction, and she was feeding me some of her content. A lot of her drapes and hand painted stuff that she did for Elro, I used as a style injection for style transfer. So my visuals were kind of infusing her style into things. So everything just kind of the palettes matched, the mood matched, and yeah, no, she's very good at what she does.
Yeah, one of the best. Cool. So shifting a little bit into software and kind of like current Wayne visuals. Yeah, I mean, you're like a little bit of a jack of all trades. You kind of you're a high level 3D guy, and you're also doing lots of different compositing stuff. I'm making a lot of assumptions here, so please, I'm excited to hear you talk about it. I'm assuming you also use After Effects a lot, probably for a lot of compositing and things like that. But yeah, give us a little bit about, your current workflow, even though I'm sure it's very vast, and maybe like how did you get to this current workflow? Like what has been the journey of your current workflow?
Right. Well, I mean, the way these things are changing and the way the AI tools are kind of just evolving, you kind of have to get good at letting go of your current workflow. And, you know, it's not to say you got to have the shiny toy syndrome and go for the next shiny thing, but
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a lot of the workflows do get outdated quite quickly in terms of the way of doing things. But at the core of my workflow with mapping has always been MadMapper. You know, prior to MadMapper being invented, I was using, like I said, Quartz Composer, and I had to invent a way to draw lines inside VDMX, and that didn't quite exist yet because I found that if you were opening different softwares, like the classic way to map a building would be to open up Photoshop and put your second display on the building, and then just trace it out, you know. And it wasn't
Right.
uncommon to switch the projectors on at sundown and start tracing and trace, you know, trace all night until the sun comes up and you're forced to stop.
For sure.
So, but going back and forth between Photoshop and throwing that image into VDMX, I always found there were errors and discrepancies, and it was a bit tricky. So, I thought the only way to really do it and get it locked in is to find a way to draw inside of VDMX. So I used this Quartz Composer
Wow.
patch, which allowed me to draw 4 lines at a time before the memory just filled up and it crashed the software. So I would draw 4 lines. I would like outline a window or something and then screen grab that
And then
and then
crash.
restart it and bring the screen grab back in. I've got that window and then draw another 4. And that
Oh
was
my
kind of
god.
the way to map things before Mad Mapper came around. And then,
Mm-hmm.
hey man, Mad Mapper came around and it was like, okay, this is the future, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think they had their space scanner feature quite in version 1. I think it was version 2 or 3 where they added it.
Mm-hmm.
But once they added that space scanner feature, using a Canon camera and scanning the object or the thing you're mapping could take you 5 to 10 minutes. You know, what used to take all night long was suddenly taking 5 minutes and 10 minutes. So
Mm-hmm.
that formed a core part of my workflow. And with Daniel Popper's piece, I did that. With a lot of the early Elro stuff, I had to do that because the Elro parties have a very quick turnaround. Some of the venues they use, there's been a party in there the night before, so they
Huh.
get the venue like 12 hours before their show starts. They've got to
Right.
build the whole stage, they've got to
Right.
clean it, they've got to do everything. And one of the gigs I did for them, I was doing my spatial scans 10 minutes before doors were going to open.
Oh my gosh.
So I literally had like a spatial scan, a static JPEG, which was the forming the core of what I had to work with, you know, and some other just textures and things to lay on top of that. But for the first like 2 hours of the show, I was in Apple Motion just rendering out some line animations and getting some content going. And maybe by the end of the night, I had 3 or 4 good looks, you know, because you're trying to render on one machine
Mm-hmm.
and VJ on another machine.
Mm-hmm.
So I've always kind of found myself in that situation where there's got to be quick turnarounds on something that needs to be mapped that there isn't necessarily a 3D model for,
Mm-hmm.
and you got to come up with content in a hurry. So yeah, I kind of built a workflow around taking that JPEG, that spatial scan, and you know, how do you now fold that out into meaningful content that can last a night?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Not so
Fast.
much After Effects like you alluded to,
Okay.
a little bit of After
Okay.
Effects here and there,
Okay.
but just kind of grew into it using the Final Cut in Motion, and you can
Mm-hmm.
do a lot. You can do a lot of basic stuff in there that once you have that, you can bring it into VDMX and add effects to that, and off you go.
Interesting. So, okay, a few things there. When when you say spatial scanning, you're referring obviously to the Mad Mapper like spatial scanning
Mad
like
Mapper, yeah, Mad Mapper.
workflow. I've
Have you
never
used
I've
it?
never I've used Mad Mapper before, but I've never used a spatial scanner.
Yeah,
But I'm assuming it's like kind of like
yeah,
the lightware where it's doing like patterns,
exactly that.
symmetrical
Yeah,
patterns on the projector.
structured lines. Yeah.
What does it give you after? It gives you like like an image, like a
Yeah, it gives you a JPEG that if you took your eyeball and you put it where the projector's lens
then it would
is,
be the same. Okay.
you have a
So
pixel
it's
accurate version of what the projector sees. So you're good
gotcha.
to
So
go.
it's like
Yeah.
it's kind of like the workflow that most people use where it's like you have a pixel map and then you're just matching that pixel map to the actual physical space. But here you're
Yeah.
getting the pixel map from the physical space, which is also kind of like what a lot of people do, where they'll go, stand under the projector and take a picture and then warp it till it
Exactly.
matches. But this is just automatic.
Exactly. Yeah.
I
Yeah.
honestly never knew that MadMapper had that feature. I've seen that kind of workflow from the lightwares, not lightwares. What are they called? Those little cameras that went on the Epson projectors. They don't make them
Yes.
anymore, but there's like a little
I
same
remember
concept really.
that device, like
Um,
an all-in-one.
yeah,
Yeah.
like an all-in-one. Yeah. Okay, interesting. So then that means that most of your workflows are on site. Like you have to get stuff ready conceptually, but making the content, you're making it on site. You don't work with pixel maps like like here's a map and then make content and then map that.
I do for
You do
sure.
as well.
If the 3D model's good to go, if the 3D model's going to match the real thing, then for sure. In the case of modem, absolutely.
Right. The
Modem model
files are already
was
provided.
bang
Yeah.
on.
Yeah.
I mean the Hive and the Swamp. The Swamp, yeah, it was just a little bit of warp. I mean, the Delta Process team did all the warping and the setting up
Yeah.
of that, so
Yeah.
that was great. But
A lot of warping.
yeah, yeah, a lot of warping and a lot of tweaking and yeah, keeping it together really. But if the stage is going to have a lot of like stretchy material, and you don't really know, some of it's hand painted, you don't know exactly where in Z space it's going to go. Sometimes the stage builds at origin, they would kind of have more of an organic feel. The previs would be like a SketchUp file, so you could get some basic ideas and understandings of what you wanted to accomplish with that. But for me, once I have that spatial scan locked in place, then I can go into style transfer land. I can
Right.
go into
You can
3D
sub in and
land
stuff.
and do some 3D stuff on it. And so it's been a blend. It's been a blend of using that and
Interesting.
sort of pixel map and previs models.
Interesting. So mostly you're focusing on MadMapper. You're making a lot of stuff on site. Are you using a lot of 3D tools, or is it kind of mostly you're doing stuff in AI land these days?
Cinema 4D. Cinema
Okay.
4D always brings. I mean, I
Everything
don't use
together.
it extensively, but as long as you have a 3D model that's lined up with your scan or your stage or whatever it is you're mapping, and you're moving some lights and shadows and you're putting some cool textures on that, like that's going to send you a long way forward in terms of what
For
you can do.
sure.
So yeah, it's mixing that 3D kind of 3D assets that you can make with existing like shaders, GSLL shaders, and things that synesthesia, things that can accept
Yeah, you use
that pixel
synesthesia?
map as well,
Cool. That's cool.
real time stuff.
I guess
And
synesthesia is perfect for that, right? Because that spatial map is so accurate, and I guess it gives you like
exactly,
different. It gives you like line edges probably as well, and different types of stuff. That must look so like
yeah,
synesthesia is perfect for that. Yeah, that's really cool. Um, so wait, I have one more question. So when you have this is like I'm actually interested, not actually like I'm interested in everything, but this is my brain is asking a question. When you're doing that spatial map, um, how do you put that into 3D land? Does it give you like a 3D camera and like plane, or are you just kind of bringing that image into a 3D software and then kind of brute forcing the camera to match?
yeah, brute forcing the camera to match. I mean, you can go with perspective camera, but for me, parallel camera always like kind of helps it match quicker. It
Yeah,
just
yeah.
flattens the image
Orthographic.
a little bit
Yeah, yeah,
more.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
orthographic. So using it like that, and also
Interesting.
using it in MadMapper Live. So whether you're using MadMapper to have your scan as a backplate to line everything else up that you're doing, bringing 3D models in live and doing stuff with that,
Hmm.
or just using the like a backplate in Cinema 4D in your viewport
Right,
as a way
right.
to
Just to
line things
see
up
that it's
and
lined up. Yeah, interesting.
to see that it's going to lock in. Yeah,
That's so cool. Interesting. Yeah, it's so
yeah,
interesting to see the different workflows, and like I always feel I kind of I mean this is by choice. I pigeonholed myself into like a totally specific type of style. But by choice. So it wasn't like I could still go in other places. I love 3D and real time, and that workflow is super specific. Like it's interesting because now for the first time this year, I guess I've done it before, but this year was like a really like first time doing it on a big scale, was Master of Puppets, where it's also all made in like the stage is made on site. There's no 3D model or anything.
mm,
But shout out to spectrum mapping, and what's the other? They have like a bunch of names, but it's three guys, and I can't remember the Lumalux is the name of their
Yeah.
project. And they do all the asset creation on site. They go a week before, they get all the 3D scans. We clean up the model together, and the workflow is a pixel map with a 3D camera and 3D model. So, but before that, it's like, okay, if I don't have a 3D model and a 3D camera before the event, it's very hard for me to do my Unreal stuff and workflow because I need to have those assets. And even like, I did a Twisted Frequency Festival in the beginning of this year, 2024. Or what year are we in? 2025, the beginning of this year, at the end of 2024. And that was also like all kind of like stuff made on site. So this huge bird with all these like petals. And, the photogrammetry aspect and getting a camera is pretty straightforward. You could do it in a night, especially when the photogrammetry is accurate, then mapping that pixel map is very easy because you're actually using the physical model on site, kind of almost similar to spatial, where it's like, here's the real asset, okay, here's a 3D camera, now I'm gonna warp this thing to match. The real issue was that the photo scan isn't like all the assets or all the pieces are one piece. You're getting one big mesh, and like
Yes.
a lot of the effects you want to be able to do is pieces that I want to be able to do is pieces moving and kind of like affecting. So like 2 days was spent on, cutting out, not cutting out, we remeshed everything, and shout out to Dan for that because he did such an amazing job. But yeah, like getting all those pieces and everything was super challenging. So it's like that workflow is so pigeonholed for me that it's like there's so many like requirements for it to work. But that's kind of what I like to do. But it's so
You
nice.
gotta really want it when you're working with that model on site.
For sure. You got to really, really want it. For me, it's like I don't have a choice. It's like if I don't do it, then I don't have any content. So I really have to want it and really have to do it. So yeah, super cool to hear your workflow. I'd love to shift now before we go into your set very soon, kind of like the AI workflow that you're part of, and kind of like really, really championing, because I think that many people do it, not many people can do it good, and I think not many people can do it to the level where you're doing it, where it's like almost even asking the question, is this AI? I'll just give an example, like this piece, which I think is kind of a pretty recent piece from yours. Very
Right.
recent. You're kind of looking at it and I'm like, okay, I know it's AI, but I'm also like, how? It's so temporally accurate. You're getting like such a nice 3D kind of scene here. And I know you're going to kind of show this in your set, but just give us a little bit of like, what has been the process for you in terms of making that shift into these very untraditional AI workflows that are not like image based, 3D based. I mean, I guess they are, but yeah, just give us a little bit about that.
Sure. Well, I mean, it has evolved very rapidly in the
Yeah.
last, I'd say 3 years. Probably 3 years ago at Origin was when I was using something called Deep Dreamer. And it was doing recursive dreaming, where it was kind of doing, hallucinating in phases and then hallucinating on its own hallucinations. And some of those still frames where I was feeding the spatial scan in were taking 9 hours on my machine to put out a
Jesus.
single still frame. But
That's great.
it was, I could see the potential there. And as the tools evolved, and some of the tools I'll show you in my set, what I quickly realized is that when you're going with something like text to image, and I think the same applies with text to video, if you're just going pure text and you saying, make me this, you're going to get something very synthetic back. It's going to feel very AI. It's going to feel very strange. But if you're going image to image, you have your wet dry slider that you can kind of play with. And if you're sending somebody like Karen's work in there, or Daniel's work, Daniel Popper, then you're kind of infusing their frequency into what's going to come out on the other side. And playing with that wet dry balance, you can really have their vibe overriding the synthetic AI vibe, if that makes any sense.
It does.
So,
Is that like,
yeah,
are you talking about control nets, or is this even before a control net?
yeah, control nets and image to image, and if
Gotcha.
you even want to go the route of like training a LoRa on somebody's work,
Right,
to
right,
to
right,
kind of
right, right.
make sure that it has their vibe and their
Mm,
spice.
interesting.
So that was the one thing that I found, and then the other thing that I found was kind of like iterative or recursive style transfer. So
Mm-hmm.
I'll go through this in the set as well. But if you think of the movie Inception, the guy's
Yeah.
having a dream within a dream within a dream, and
Right.
time keeps slowing down more and more and more until it's like just unbearable. And what I found is that if I took the best 3 or 4 style transfers that I got from the previous time I'd mapped a Daniel Popper sculpture, and then I injected that into the next style transfer, I'm already infusing like the success I had from the last one into the next one,
Huh.
and taking that one and
Interesting.
infusing that into the next one. So it's like this iterative style transfer, and if you keep working with the same piece over and over, which is the one that's going out at Burning Man, you kind of get these like master keys almost. So there's
Mm-hmm.
there's one like JPEG is going to give you a certain flavor and a certain look,
Mm.
and it's also about just knowing when to jump ship with one AI engine and
Right.
move it into another one and kind of add that one's flavor. And always just playing with the wet dry, the denoise, but the wet dry balance. And kind of just, bouncing them off each other, like ping ponging from one AI into another and then feeding it back into the first one, and just regenerative style transfer until you
Mm.
get lots and lots of detail and interesting stuff.
Fascinating. Fascinating. And when do you like? What is your and we can definitely jump into this at the post set because I think it's a little bit. It could get into like more, esoteric kind of ideas. But what is your philosophy when it comes to AI? Not in terms of like, not in terms of like stealing or anything like that. I think that's kind of less
Hmm.
interesting, but just like as an artist, as somebody who's been around for a long time. You're old. We said that already. As somebody who kind of has, you have your jack of all trades. You have all these kind of amazing skills and techniques. You know, what is your view on this whole thing? Like, okay, it's obviously not like so simple to get good results. There is a huge like learning curve. There's like anything when you render, it could be bad. You have to do it again, etc. A lot of experimentation. Like, I guess I guess I'm kind of interested in like your experience with it. Is it, are you getting a lot of enjoyment out of it? Are you getting a lot of, feedback from it? Like, what has been the kind of experience for you, and what is your philosophy around it?
Yeah, look, it's such a nuanced conversation.
Yeah.
Like you said, you almost can't ignore the ethical side of it, where it's you can just ask for a Alex Gray piece or an Andrew Jones
Right.
piece, and it's trained on their work. So there's that side which we can't really ignore, which is not great.
Mm.
But for my own workflow, it's definitely 10x or 20x. It's hard to
Mm.
say what I can do in a short space of time.
Mm.
And as the tools have evolved, or perhaps as my understanding of how to use them has evolved, there's less curating. Like usually you pump out 100 things and discard 90 of them. So there'd
Mm-hmm.
be a lot of human selection going on and chucking out all the nightmare fuel and all the bad stuff, and getting to the good stuff. But what I really get excited about is like in something like Comfy UI, where you get it dialed down to the point where you can actually tell it, what you want it to do,
Mm-hmm.
what
Mm-hmm.
exactly what you want to see. And if you see something you don't like, you can tell it not to do that. And it's
Mm-hmm.
it's getting to that place where it's listening to you, and it's giving you the result that you imagine it's going to give you before you hit render, if that makes any sense. So
Totally.
yeah, it's definitely evolving, and it's super exciting. It's a double-edged sword because
Yeah.
I used to get a lot of commission work through Instagram, just creating music videos for people and short reels and pieces, and that's trickled down to almost nothing now, because
Because it's
people
just
can
so
do it for
easy.
themselves now. It's so
Mm.
easy, it's plug and play, and
Interesting.
so
Interesting.
yeah, it's like an interesting. It helps you, and it like eats into your your goodness at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah. What's your view?
Interesting. It's a good question. I think ethically, I find it a little bit questionable, like you said. But then when it comes to ethics and like, things like that, it's a tough one because, I mean, what like it's just inspiration. in some way. Like if you dumb it down to like a very simple aspect, it's like I see something and I'm inspired by it. Am I stealing from it? No, it's inspiration. But then on a macro level, it's like those models were purposefully trained on data that nobody allowed them to. So there is like an issue of like, I didn't want you to look at my painting and be inspired by it, you know? But then it's like, who makes art that doesn't want people to be inspired by it? It's very unlikely that Alex Gray is like, I want to make art and I don't want anybody to see it, you know? So if somebody can see it, then if a computer sees it, kind of similar in some way. I don't know. There's probably a lot of conversation around that. I wish that they would have infused into the training data like some sort of blockchain technology that could like understand, okay, when I prompt, I'm pulling from 1,000 different places, give each of those 1,000 artists a cent or whatever, you know, make some sort of system. And it would have been so easy to do. We have the technology. The reason they didn't is because they were unethically stealing and scraping the internet without anybody's consent. So it's unfortunate. I feel like things will change. I feel like things will shift around. I don't know how. And then, yeah, in terms of, this is what I want to talk to you about in the next portion, in terms of like the use cases. I don't use it for art, but I use it pretty much every day extensively for vibe coding and systems engineering and conceptualization of like bigger code-based projects. And that has like, first of all, I'm like intermediate level or maybe like beginning level coder, which I never was, you know, like I've been using node based coding and visual scripting for like a decade, but like that's like not the same thing as like coding. It definitely helped me shape my like understanding of things, and definitely like helped me like understand how to prompt and things like that. But yeah, so I definitely see the utility. I still haven't figured out how it I think last year there was, I don't remember what it was for, but maybe it was Modem, or I don't think it was Modem. It was another it was Shankara. There was a festival like a few years ago in Shankara, and I tried to generate some textures for my model with a control net, like, you know, gave it a control net, very specific comfy UI kind of stuff. And I didn't really use anything from it. You know, I didn't really use anything from it. It inspired me. It gave me some like ideas, but I kind of enjoyed more like going into substance and like making it. You know what I mean?
Right.
I still haven't figured out for me what it is, but then every time I see where it's going and like, you know, what we just showed now of like this beautiful, very temporally accurate 3D model, I more and more inclined and interested. I think for me, it's more of like and that's kind of what I was trying to kind of ask. I think for me, it's like the art of, or not the art, the process of spending time going into like my, you know, my techniques or my workflows, being in Unreal Engine or any type of 3D engine where I can fly around and move things kind of, I think is for me still enjoyable. And I'm waiting for that in like an AI workflow. Like it's very clear to me that in a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, pretty much every software will have an AI prompting mechanism. But I don't know if that AI prompting mechanism will be like to make an image. I think it will be to interface with the process of whatever it is, the system that you're working in. So if it's Blender, you're going to be able to prompt, make me 20 things, blah, 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 blah. It's not going to be like, make me a render. It's going to be like more like you're interfacing with the system, which I'm all down for. I hate having to click and drag and move things around. That's not fun, right? But I do like being able to be inside of a system that is like a 3D viewport or like a node graph where I can visually see what's happening. Comfy UI obviously, you know, kicks it in for that. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but there is something about I have no qualms with like it being AI, not at all. I do have qualms with like things kind of looking the same, which I think was the case for a few years. I think now it's totally different. Like now you're having outputs that are completely devoured of like the AI feeling, you know, which I think is very interesting and kind of where I'm inclined to kind of jump on the board as well. But then, and I'm sure you're going to give us more information into that, like, getting a result like this was probably very difficult. I would imagine. I don't think that it's simple to get a result like this. Maybe I'm wrong. And if I'm wrong, please tell me. But
I mean, it is pretty simple actually, but it's not simple in the fact that I had to do maybe 6 iterations of this mapping with style transfers that fed into one another to get to the place where I have these like master keys for Daniel Popper's sculpture. This one particularly that
yeah.
I can plug in and I kind of know in advance what it's going to do for me.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that's like the thing that I'm trying to understand with AI. It's the same thing with the coding, right? It's like once I get into like an instructional place where the agents that are doing the code are like not fucking up and hallucinating, then it's fast, right? And like I know that if I'm like, hey, fix this, fix that, it's gonna work. But until I get to that point, and I'm also like not on a high level that I really fully understand what's going on. But once I get to that point takes a long time.
Mm.
So for me, it's like, okay, if it takes X amount of hours to get to a point where you have that baseline, map or baseline thing that the AI is going to be able to do, I would probably be able to make some stuff in Substance Painter and Blender and Unreal in that amount of time. And because I've managed to make myself all these reusable systems, because I'm all real time, then for me to like get a model, make it move, make it do all the things I want to do is pretty plug and play at this point, because I just basically put it in my scene and I have all my systems. Making textures is a much more like a manual process, but even now I've got it down to like a process. Now, if I can get that process to be prompted and like have agents do it for me, I'm all down for that, right? Because it's like a manual process. It's the same process every time. Load it,
Mm.
map the UVs, do this, do that, do this, do that, do this, do that. Export it, do this, do that, do this. Add all the 6, template materials that I have as starting points. If I can get an agent to do that for me, I'm all down for that. But it's like these processes are so kind of ingrained into what I find enjoyable about the whole process that I feel like, I feel like completely, taking them out of my workflow doesn't make sense to me. But how do I like? What is interesting to me? How do I find the sauce in the AI to be able to drip on my workflow, for lack of a good thing, which I think it's coming. I don't think it's far away. I think it's pretty much here. You can connect Blender to an MCP server and basically have an AI do all the things for you. Dot Simulate is an amazing resource for touch designer AI stuff, and he released a whole suite of tools to be able to basically have a node-based, almost like a comfy UI system, but inside of touch designer with specifics of agents and feedbacks and all these kind of things that I can see as like being like a really amazing workflow for automating things, automating processes that you're going to do again and again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you become less of a professional button pusher and get the
Yeah,
agents to push the buttons.
exactly. I was talking to my wife about this yesterday. We were kind of like just hanging out, and I'm like, I'm so addicted to like my IDE, like my code program, basically like Visual Studio, and I'm just like all day like bossing around like agents to like do things, and I'm like, this is like kind of almost like a power complex enjoyment, where it's like I have all these people working for me, whatever, people, like all these AI agents working for me, and I'm like, do this, do that, do this, do that, and like faster, faster, and I'm like getting so megalomania about it, that it's like such an interesting feeling. But it really is a great feeling when the result is what you wanted. It's like really magic.
Yeah, super
So
cool.
it's super cool.
Yeah, just on that, I'll tell you an interesting study
Please.
that I saw that they did. People using things like ChatGPT and Claude AI and that, and they had people use it in 2 different ways. The one group was using it where they were kind of being polite and saying please and thank you and respectful, and the other group was just being outright mean, like just no please, no thank you, just do this, do that. and they both used this AI for the same amount of time, and they did some tests before and after, and they found that the people's brains that were bossy and kind of mean were just a bit more depleted, like their energy levels were a bit lower than the people
Interesting.
that were using the pleases and the thank yous. So cool.
All right, so we're gonna jump into Wayne's computer here and get acquainted to his workflows. So please take it away, Wayne.
Cool. Let's just set the scene here with what the sculpture looks like. This is the one that's going out at Burning Man, and yeah, that's kind of the size. I
Nice.
think it's 15 feet roughly. This is at Ultra Miami, the second time I used it or mapped it, and then here it is at Electric Forest. So this was my very first encounter with this piece and figuring out what to do. We obviously had to project it in a portrait mode, so we had the projector on its side.
Mm.
And at Electric Forest, there's no trussing or any kind of structure anywhere. We rigged it to the tree, so there was no way to
Nice.
know where the sculpture was going to be, where the tree was going to be, what the angle was going to be, and all of that good stuff. So yeah, that's kind of as the sun is starting to go down. This is one of the looks that I was super happy with because yeah, those Buddha cheeks are completely digital, and even
Nice.
during the day they looked pretty realistic. So that was off to a good start. There you can see the projector sitting in the tree, portrait mode. And what was quite interesting about this festival is after some time, people were stashing little things in here and little party treats, and it became like
Mm.
a meeting place for people to
Nice.
come and find little snacks and meet their friends. So yeah, it was super cool to see people drinking up the work.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
so yeah, that's
Nice.
just kind of a look at how the renders came out. This is some of the Buddha stuff. That's mixing just a static style transfer image with some Cinema 4 3D. So the Cinema 4D is giving the shadows and the movement, and
Hmm.
the Buddha face is kind of giving the personality underneath.
So it's just like a texture on a 3D model and
Yeah,
lights moving through it.
it's a texture and a 3D lit model
Super
underneath, and
cool.
that's just a bit of Mad Mapper going there. Um, Here's another one here, and I'll show how this was done. If I just jump forward a little bit, the texture that you see underneath is kind of the style transfer sort of lattice thing
Hmm.
that comes
Wow.
through and kind of gives it like this, you're seeing through it into
Beautiful.
what's inside the sculpture sort of feeling.
Really nice.
Let's just see here. So yeah, Electric Forest is, I guess I'd describe it as like Burning Man, but in a forest. There's just mapping and projectors and things everywhere, and I think there's 40, 50,000 people. It's pretty wild.
Hmm.
So this is the very early days of working with the sculpture, and because I was working with two sculptures of Danny's on this job, I only had like 2 days to work on this one, and then I had to focus on the other one. So I'm just going to jump into the spatial scans here. Um, there's a spatial scan over there, and because the projector's in portrait mode, the spatial scan is going to come out rotated to the side. So
Huh.
there's
Interesting.
no way you can work on it like that. It'll drive
Hmm.
you mad. So we're just going to just quickly drop that into Photoshop and spin it around. Um, let's see, what are we going clockwise here? Clockwise there. And this is a pretty good clean spatial scan. I mean, there's some noise there, and what I normally do with the noise is just clean it up as much as I can. Um, you can do that with the spot healing tool. It's a bit laborious, but you can get there. Another nice way to do it is to kind of just draw a really noisy section, like this section here, uh, just as a quick example. And there's a dust and scratches filter that you can run there.
Hmm.
And then, yeah, over there, you can kind of just dial this down, maybe one, maybe there. And you can see it's done a lot of cleanup already.
That's awesome.
So just from there, you can kind of go in there and clean it up a bit more. Obviously, the face is the most important. I always just make sure the face is just completely blemish free. And I'm kind of aiming for that that beauty shot, the kind of
Mm-hmm.
the JPEG master key to kind of help me build the mapping scene on.
Got pixel
So
map.
in the next folder here, you can see the beauty shot for that
Nice.
mycelia. So this is what the projector sees. And we did it at a slight angle because we just found there was more of her face to hit over here and less interesting stuff over there, more mushrooms here to work on.
Mm-hmm.
So I've got this this beauty shot now, and I ran it through some style transfers. I was using Deep Dream Generator, very early style transfer. Let's just see. I'll bring up one of the styles here. Like, here's the style
Nice.
over there. Let's just bring up the beauty shot there, and then kind of what it gives you would have been this.
Wow. It's cool.
So, you can kind of see the form of it there. I guess it was using an early sort of control net thing to kind of trace the shape.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, using this process, I generated a whole bunch of stuff and then cherry picked the best of it.
Mm.
This is another one here. This kind of has this. Let's open this one up here because this one was one that actually kept iterating well back onto itself.
Nice.
Close this up. It was very interesting. Like, you wouldn't expect this texture to do much. It was like
Right.
quite low res, and for some reason, like in Deep Dream Generator, people were uploading these textures that had these splits in them. So different quadrants of the textures were going to different parts of the image it produced, and I didn't quite understand how it worked, but yeah, I really liked what was coming out the other side. So you can see it's pretty rough and it's pretty dirty, but obviously there's a mask that goes around the sculpture to take away any spill, and we'll do that now. But some of the other looks I came up with in that like day and a half, 2 days that I had to work on it was stuff like this.
Wow.
Just like glowing, just some very minimal eyes and some mushrooms glowing.
This is also in a generator.
This was using
AI
something
generator?
called Latent Labs.
Latent
So
Labs.
Latent Labs, yeah, it doesn't exist anymore, and it didn't run for very long, but it ran in a Discord server. So you would send it your image, you would send
Right.
it
Gotcha.
some prompting and maybe an image style reference, and it would go from there. And I think this was my first taste of like telling the thing, this is what I want to see, and it was quite reliably giving it back to me, and giving it back to me in the same shape that I needed it to be, so it would
Right.
fit. So this is kind of like a more of a mushroom
Super
goblin creature, I guess.
Yeah.
Another one over there. We'll animate these in a short while.
Nice.
And then here's one of the Buddhas there, and there's the other Buddha there. And yeah, just this like thing with the cheekbones and then combining it with some 3D really brought the sculpture to life. So what I did is I ended up keeping like the best of what I had from that. And then the next time we did this gig, which was in Miami, let's just see. So in Miami, we were hitting the sculpture straight on as opposed to from the one side. And I think this was actually the key because now the AI was seeing the sculpture from a different angle, but it was able to sort of reference what the sculpture looked like from another side. And when I used that as a style transfer, I'll show you some of the stuff that started to come out. So this is one of them.
Wow. Beautiful.
And yeah, it started to get, so this wasn't straight out the box. This was run through another creative upscaler afterwards called Magnifique. I don't know if you'd heard of it.
No.
And they were like the first guys to have like AI upscaling where it actually
Right.
resampled the image in smaller blocks and added all of this crazy detail. So a lot of the time I was creating renders that were like twice the size that I needed and then shrinking them down after that. This one was actually done in Runway. Runway has a style transfer as well. And this one came out really nicely, just kind of quite realistic actually. Good lighting, nice realistic golden caps there, golden teachers, I guess. Here's another one there. And I think this one was actually bounced off of this one here.
Nice.
I think it was this one, yeah. So
cool.
So yeah, when I fed this into the style transfer and applied it to the statue from a different angle, and then ran it through Magnifique, like this is what came out the other side. And
So
yeah,
nice.
this is a year later. So what you're looking at is 2023 on the left and 2024 on the right, in
Right. It's
terms of the
crazy.
way the technology evolved.
It's crazy.
Yeah, and it just gets it kind of looks like a real render with real lighting and highlights and things like that. So yeah, it was getting very exciting for me. Let's see. This is the last one I've got here, which is it's loaded up
Damn.
in my Leonardo, which is this is kind of like a more cyborgy sci-fi, sort of half human, half normal, half machine kind of.
And this is a
Um,
prompt, or is this also a style transfer?
this is a style transfer.
Wow.
Yeah.
Amazing.
So this was a style transfer. Sure, I don't recall what the image was for this one, but yeah, it was okay. So it was a prompt and a style transfer, but it was also a LoRa, which runs on this Leonardo platform, which I'll get to in a little bit. And then yeah, just for kind of getting hyped up and getting excited, I put this 3D depth flow onto it, so you
Nice.
could just kind of see the piece
Yeah.
moving in 3D space and get
Nice.
a feel for it.
Nice. Super cool.
So yeah, this camera moving stuff is obviously no good for mapping because the
Right.
camera has to
Right.
stay very still. But this is just to kind of, share it online, get excited by it. And then the way I ran some of these loops, I ran them remotely. I wasn't always at the gig myself. So I trained up one of Daniel's associates. His name's Sam, a rad guy. Shout out to Sam. And he
Shout out,
would
Sam.
he would be in all these places, Lightning in a Bottle, Arc Festival, wherever the sculpture went, Ultra Miami. He would do the scan, and he would send me the scan, and about 24 hours later, I'd send him the loop, and the loop would be based off of his scan. So these are just some of the looks that went in there. You can see them just sort of morphing between looks, kind of having it more like a gallery piece, not too crazy and not too much movement in the beginning. Then this line work is just done in Apple Motion, just like a threshold and an oscillator, just moving the threshold up and down and just revealing the details of the sculpture. And that always works very well for those pieces. And then you can see some Cinema 4D stuff combining with some of those looks now. So it's just sort of lighting and shadows and, a bit mysterious. I think this was just a blend mode that I used in Final Cut to do this. I can overlay blend mode. And let's just jump forward a bit here. So now we're kind of just interpolating between different looks. Once I find a model and a LoRa that works really well, I'll generate like 20, 30 of those frames, slightly different from each other, changing the seed, changing the denoise, and then just run them through Stable Diffusion, through film, and ask it to just interpolate between them. So it kind of just gives this morphing, almost feels like it's a live feeling onto the sculpture.
Really nice.
I think usually we were going for like 15, 20-minute loops. We would just load them onto a mini MAD device and plug that into the projector and let that loop through the event.
Nice. Super cool.
So
So you're doing most. Oh, hello, Mr. Buddha. So you're doing most of the content creation and planning, and then handing it off to a technical person that can fill it all in, do it all for you.
Exactly. Yeah,
Nice.
just give him essentially a loop that I think once or twice I've worked with VJs that I sent them stems so they could just work the sculpture live and keep it a bit more interesting for people, there with the laptop.
Yeah.
But oftentimes we just generating a loop that can go with that piece, with that projector position for that event.
Nice shadows.
That sort of thing. So this is just very simple Cinema 4D, keyframing some lights, shadows.
When you're going into Cinema 4D, are you putting in the this is obviously just a white texture, but like in the other ones where you had like the Buddha face, are you applying that texture onto the model and then running lights in? And if so, then how are you? No,
not really. Actually, just in Mad Mapper. Just in Mad Mapper, if they're lining up
Gotcha.
correctly and they have the exact same orientation, then there isn't
Then it
really a need
works.
to run it into Cinema 4D.
Gotcha.
So yeah, that was Miami,
Nice.
2024. Let's just take a look here. Can see some of the Burning Man stuff that's coming out for 25. These are all comfy UI renders. So I'm kind of skipping a step. I'm going to go back a step, but I'll just show a couple of these to you, which we can go into comfy UI later. But every year, the models just get cleaner. This is Stable Diffusion XL.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure which model this is, but yeah, this particular comfy patch is really paying attention to the prompting and the words, and it's making sure the eyes are closed. Sometimes I'll open the eyes, but often the open eyes thing, unless it's done, really precisely, it can look a bit freaky if the eyes aren't in the right place or something like that. So yeah, there's just a couple of different looks here, and you can just see the
It gets freaky. I love that.
yeah, it does get a bit freaky. I mean, it's always better to operate these things live on site. So if anything's crazy, you can chop it out and you can see what works. This is kind of getting into more of a, I don't know, an optical illusion, face within a face thing. Um, but ultimately, you can see the shape remains. So if I go through them quickly, they're all just following those mushrooms, that face. And with these types of sculptures, people are generally drawn to the face. So if the face is mapped and the face is tight, then you're all good. There's no face there. That's just an interesting one. I'm not sure how it's going to come out. But yeah, just different looks, different feelings. Again, getting this like octane, HDR lighting happening. It's quite cool the way you can get that now without having to do it in 3D. These are some more from Comfy, which we can jump into later. So a lot of these are actually passed through this app I'm going to show you next called Leonardo.
Mm-hmm.
And once Leonardo's done with it, then I'll either take it into Comfy or I'll take it into another upscaler and add some more flavor to it over there.
I love
Um,
these. Super nice. So detailed.
so yeah, thanks, man. So there's the model right there. And the model doesn't match exactly the sculpture. There's a few places where mushrooms are a slightly different size. One or two mushrooms have broken off throughout the years. I don't think this mushroom at the back is still there, but it's pretty good as a base to put into cinema and animate some lights and maybe put some textures on it. So
Mm-hmm.
that will also go into Mad Mapper quite nicely, but it does need a few hacks to get it to fit.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll show you how this works now in Leonardo. So you're choosing all your models over here, and they just keep adding to these models. And not all of them have the the control and the depth maps and the sort of image to image accuracy that you need to pull
Mm-hmm.
this off. The one that I found works the best for me for this type of work is this one, which is their own flavor of Stable Diffusion XL.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to choose that cinematic Kino. I'll leave the style for now. I'm just going to grab this prompt that's already here because it works really well. It's quite a short prompt. Just high dynamic range, HDR photography, serene face, eyes closed, breathtaking masterpiece, psychedelic mushroom sculpture, intricate, blah, blah, blah. So, you can really go to town with your prompts, but often the less tokens, the better, actually, because then you let
Mm-hmm.
the style transfer and the image you're going to inject into it take the lead.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'll just make sure that it's not going to open the eyes for me here, although there are some LoRa's and things that are going to try and force the eyes open, which we'll see if it does that.
Interesting.
So over here you have all your bits and pieces, and um, I'm just going to jump in over here, and the first thing to grab is a depth map. We're going to say depth to image, and I'm going to just look around in here until I see my beauty shot, which is my
Mm-hmm.
spatial scan essentially. So we got that depth to image. A setting of 1 is great. The next one I'm going to grab is edge to image. And edge to image is like the canny control net, I
Yep.
guess, or
Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
scribble. So that's gonna follow the eyes. That's gonna follow all the detailing on the head, and that's just gonna make it lock in even further. And then let's just grab one of the master keys here, and that's gonna go in as a style reference. And so you can see all my old experiments here, and you can throw anything in. Like I would throw this wireframe building in, it would give it like a cool Tron look. There's some of the modem South Africa Stargates. Maybe this is a cool place to start. So they've done 2 modems here, I think, South Africa edition, and that's what the Stargate looked like. So I'm just going to tell Leonardo that let's give it a high setting, and let's make sure we're good over here. We're going to be on mobile 16:9. We just want one image. Let's make sure it's on quality, and I'm going to put the style in HDR just to make sure that everything's clean and in focus. And this will take about 20 seconds to generate. It's pretty quick. So, I mean, I used to do everything just strictly in Stable Diffusion using Web UI or Forge, but I found having this web app that kind of works in the same way, but you have all your assets online. This thing has a little app you can run on your phone. So I could literally be like in the car waiting for something and pull out my phone and kick off a few renders, have an idea of a look I want to go for, and then just throw a few renders to cook, and it'll do it, So that's what it's given us there.
Sick.
That's
That's from right
pretty
now.
cool.
Damn, that's pretty cool.
That's from right
That's
now,
awesome.
yeah. So
awesome.
yeah, I'm not loving the hole in the face, but there's some interesting stuff going on there for sure. The mushrooms look good. That all looks pretty interesting. So let's just change this out, and this is kind of my go-to over here when I was talking about those master keys. These are like a couple of years of style transfers feeding into style transfers and feeding back on itself. So let's grab this one over here, which is kind of the more robotic looking one. So literally at the moment all we have is this prompt, which is quite simple. We've got the depth map, the canny control net lines, and I'm telling this thing to use a high. You can go low, mid, high, ultra, or max. So I'm just going to kick that one off there, and while that's busy, let's just throw another one down. Let's maybe go for this one here because it's quite photorealistic. And the beauty of this thing is you can just cue them and off they go. And let's throw that one in. And then this little creature that I've got here is quite interesting, but you can see its eyes are wide open. It's got some cool colors going on, but if I throw this in, it's probably going to try and open up her eyes. But let's see. It might look good. It might look a bit freakish. Let's see how it turns out. So let's go through them. That's the first one we did. This is the next one. I mean, I'm really liking
Sick.
What's going on with the face there.
The lighting is so cool, huh? The realistic
lighting's
lighting.
pretty cool. Everything's locked in place. That looks good. So I'd say I'd be happy with that. I'd just pull that down quickly. That's the next one. There's an interesting glow that's coming through on each thing that I'm not prompting for, but yeah, pretty cool, pretty interesting.
I like the neck. That thing in the neck is cool. The little it's almost like a tree. Like rings in the neck. It's pretty interesting.
Right. Yeah, I know. It looks very like organic and believable. So there's a way to take this now into another upscaler and just give it that extra little bit of sauce.
More details.
Yeah. Here's the other one. These are going to blend all quite well together. And that face just looks super clean and super polished. So I'm pretty happy with that as well. And then the last one, that's with the creature with the eyes. Okay, it's left her eyes closed. That's good. And this, it's a pretty interesting psychedelic texture job.
Color palette is cool.
Yeah, color palette's pretty interesting. So if I find something that I like, I will just hit that button there and make 4 of them. You could make 8 of them. And then it's going to give you 8 images, changing the seeds slightly, and you're going to have like 8 images you can then mix together and blend together.
Gotcha. Cool.
So let's just take the style transfer out for now, and let's just run one with no style, just the clean depth, the edge. It's probably going to come out quite similar to the original, but it'll be interesting to see what it does. And while that's going, I'm just going to jump over to Kriya. Have you used Kriya? Do you know of Kriya?
No, the only main AI tools that I've used have been Comfy UI and the original, what was it, 411 app that you run locally.
Yes, Automatic.
Automatic, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a classic. Yeah,
Yeah,
amazing.
yeah.
Um, let's go and grab one of those and see what we have. Yeah, that one's pretty
But
nice. So
Kriya is the upscaler, right?
Kriya's an image generator, just like the one I was in,
Okay,
but
okay,
it
okay.
it has this upscaler in it.
Uh
But for some reason they keep adding models in here, and nothing's
huh.
as good as the legacy.
As the
So
original. That's so funny.
I stick with the legacy. You can get good stuff with the other ones, but you got to work for it a bit harder.
Mm-hmm.
And then with this one selected, I'm just gonna take the strength down a bit because I don't want it to go too AI. I'm going to put the resemblance up to 50. So it's telling it to kind of keep it the same, but it's still giving it some freedom. And I usually just drop this clarity down a little bit just so it's not too sharp because you can always add sharpness later, but you can't take it away. Um, I'm not even going to put a prompt in there. I'm just going to let it do its thing.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll just hop back into Leonardo. So, okay, interesting. It's maybe because of the HDR, it's just giving this interesting glow just straight off the bat. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's also pretty cool. Um, And now I'm going to just let me change this over to dynamic. And then in here, what you see here are basically LoRa's. And
Mm-hmm.
some of them are super strong, like a bit too strong, but some of them are very, very cool. So let's start with this infrared photography. And you can stack them and kind of have them play off each other. 80 is going to be way too strong out of the gate. I'm going to just take that down to, let's say, 40. And let's run one, and then let's run another one that has a style reference.
Mm-hmm.
Let's maybe grab this one here. Okay, and I'll run one just next to that for comparison, and let's just change this out. There's about 3 or 4 cool ones that I keep coming back to here. Let's go with glow wave and take it down a bit. And let's add on top of that some analog photography. So the analog photography is going to start to take the face a little bit away from how the face looks, the shape of it, but it's also going to give it like this realism, which is pretty interesting. Um, okay, so that was just with the analog photography. I mean, it's pretty
Nice.
interesting. It's added some extra
Interesting.
cracks there, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
it's got a bit of a Octane like C4D render vibe to it.
Mm-hmm.
That was the analog for the infrared photography with the style transfer. So it's kind of applying some of that color palette and things that I wanted. Let's pull that down, and then let's see what our latest one gives. Okay, so let's see. That's on 29, 30. It should have spat it out by now. It should come any second. But yeah, you got to get your dopamine hit wherever you can. So I'm usually hopping between apps and seeing what's ready first. And I've got 3 or 4 things cooking side by side. So yeah, that's pretty cool. I would probably take these highlights out of the eyes, but as for the rest of it, it's looking pretty cool. Um, let's take that down and let's just have a look at Kriya. So I'm going to go in here and you can see what the Kriya is doing. If you
Wow.
look at the mushrooms, it's just giving the mushrooms a little bit more realism. It's not changing a lot on the face, but I don't know. It's just giving everything a tiny bit more polish.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we can pull that guy down, or that gal, and let's see what else we have here. Yeah, that one's really nice. That'll look good enhanced. That one I would change. Okay, so that's the new enhanced. Okay, let's put that one in. I'm going to show you one more in here. Let's take these out. And let's go a little bit more extreme. Let's add the solar punk at like 50%. And maybe I'll just take the style way down so it has a bit more freedom to do its thing. Okay, so let's give this a bump to like 60. I don't know whether the prompt does anything. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. It's just going to auto-generate a prompt from an LLM there. Let's push this up a bit more, and let's take that down a tad. Let's see what comes out here. Okay, that's looking pretty interesting. So
Wow.
yeah, now you've got like
That's
some extra
crazy.
foliage happening there. Yeah, you've got a bit of techie, like, technology going on there. A bit
Solar
of solar
panels.
panel there.
I love
Yeah.
that.
So let's bring that down. And then, if I'm liking that and I want to just variate on that theme, I'll go and throw in maybe could do psychedelic art. That's a bit strong. Let's just put another glow wave in there. Take him down to 30 and run that. Okay, so that should be finishing up any moment now. Okay.
Damn.
Yeah, so if you take a look at the face, there's the before, and as we roll that over, that face just gets a lot more realistic.
Super
These
detailed.
little bits and pieces here, and that when that blends with the sculpture, which has its own imperfections. I mean, it's pretty smooth, but it's got a few imperfections here and there. The two just come together, and I like to think of that as like the final render pass. When someone's standing in front of the sculpture and they're seeing the sculpture's texture interacting with the texture of the render. That's kind of the final rendering moment. So yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with how that's looking. We'll pull that down and maybe do one more. Let's do that last one that came out, which was quite good. I think it was this one. Yeah. Let's do that one more time. So this is, the process. There's a lot of button pushing, a lot of repetition, but if you can curate along the way, and if you can name your files in a way that you can find them later, then you can make your life a lot easier when it comes to editing everything
That's
together.
important, huh? That's important for sure.
Yeah, because you got to have some technique and structure before you even start these things. Otherwise, you're just gonna lose yourself in the process. And then that's kind of the solar punk vibe with the glow wave vibe. You can see it's starting to get a bit strange on the eyes, but some of the glossiness and the other stuff that's coming through is really good. So what I might do is, like in Photoshop, I'll mix and match. If I don't like portions of the eyes or the face, I'll put like the old face back in there like that. Let's just jump back over here to Creo. That thing's doing its thing. And then typically I would animate these in Final Cut, or just composite and layer them in Final Cut, blending it with the 3D renders from Cinema 4D, just putting some plugins and things on it to kind of make it shine. Let's just go in here and check this out. So, I mean, especially what's going on with these plants next to her face.
I like that it's cleaning up the blue too.
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of color balancing at the same time.
Yeah, very interesting.
So yeah, that's looking pretty tasty. Like, I would use that, So let's pull that down as well, and then I can just jump into the next tool, which is essentially Kling AI. But I'm not going to use it in Kling. I'm going to use it in this other thing called FreePick. And FreePick actually, FreePick, like, I definitely wasn't drawn to the name, but the FreePick. But they purchased Magnifique, and I was using Magnifique for like a year and a half to do my creative upscaling. And then FreePick purchased them, and then I thought, well, it's actually cheaper to get a subscription here with FreePick and buy all these credits, and then you have access to all of these video engines, all of these video models.
Oh, interesting.
That you can do these things in.
All in one.
So it's all in one, and what I'm looking for is there a start and end frame? What's the resolution, and of course, how expensive is it, to use? And you can see Google VO3 is like 12,000 credits. Like, you will toast your money very quickly.
Is it worth 12,000 credits, or not really?
In some ways it is, but for the way I'm using it to do mapping renders that stick to the sculpture, the one that's going to do it the best for me is this Kling 1.6 Pro. It's just super solid. It does what it needs to, and it's really, really quick to use. So I'm just going to go find those two enhanced that I found. Let's see that one. We can go between those two, but let's just quickly grab the last one that came out, which is this one. And let's see how different these are. No, that's the same one. Sorry. Okay, the last one's not showing up. All right, let's grab this one. Okay, so I'm going to go between that and let's go to that and see how it turns out. We go back to free pick. We drag our start frame. Now I'm still in 16 by 9, so that's a little gotcha. I'm just going to quickly switch that over to 9 by 16. I'm going to tell it I want 10 seconds of render. You want the most you can out of these things. And I'm going to just throw that back in there. There's my start frame. And you see it's very quick to just get this thing going and doing its thing. And that's my end frame. It's gonna auto prompt based on what it sees. It's sometimes going to want to move the camera. So you can see here it's telling me it wants to do a dolly zoom. I don't really want it to move the camera, so I'm going to say static close-up shot. The camera gently pulls back. I don't want that. I just want to say cinematically. Cinematically revealing the intro. Okay, so that's good. And then I'm just going to jump into negative prompt and tell it moving camera. I don't want it to move the camera at all. I'm going to hit generate there. It's going to throw that in the line. It's going to take a couple minutes. As soon as that button becomes available to me, I'm going to switch those frames around and generate another one. So you're not going to have like a ping pong, but in essence you are. But the in and the out is going to be a different animation experience. Let's just change those up. I'm going to try something here. If I go to my electric forest stash, let's go between these two and see what it does. So let's start up a new one there. My start. End. Let's see what it wants to do with this prompt.
So it generates a prompt for you, and then you can decide.
Yeah, it actually hasn't made a new prompt now. Sometimes I take the prompt out. Let's see what happens if okay, it's not going to do that. So let's try this. Let's try smooth morph. Who knows whether the AI still listens to Masterpiece, but back in the day, it really used to enjoy that prompt. Let's throw that guy in, switch them around, and do that one. So yeah, it's pretty much doing what this is doing, what Kling is doing over here, but I just find it a bit quicker to use. You can see she's opening her eyes there. So I've got a bunch here that I've already worked on, and I'm just kind of piecing them together.
Nice. Interesting.
Yeah, that's quite a nice kind of glowing effect, and something we're going to start experimenting with. I don't think we're going to be able to do it for Burning Man, but Daniel wants to install fogger machines at the base behind the sculpture, so that it sort of projects this fog out to the sides, and then we can do sort of auras coming in and yeah, exactly, and not have it like so cleanly masked.
Super cool.
Okay, so while these are cooking, there's 4 of them. Let's just go into MadMapper real quick.
This is awesome. Thank you so much, Wayne.
Yeah, sure, man. Thank you. I've got my base scan over there, and it's, this is kind of like the bedrock. Like, as long as my animation and everything conforms to this, I know I'm good. So what typically happens at these events is I'll do the scan the night before, and then while I'm in the hotel or whatever working on renders the next day, the production team will come along and they'll add some ballast or some sandbags or something to the projection tower and secure it, but it will change the angle slightly. So, in MadMapper, you've got this video output section, which is like your final projection position. So if I just shift this little square around, it's going to change all of the mapping that's happening on this side in one instance. So instead of changing every single preset and every single quad over here, you can just go in there and kind of just tap the keys and move this yellow block around and just nudge it back into place, because oftentimes you get to the gig and things are out, and this is kind of the place to do it. And if you zoom right in there and you start key pressing, you're getting very, very subtle movements, very, very small tweaks. So yeah, that's the bedrock of that. And I'll just put a style that I've got. I think this is the one that was in the promo video. So just switching it on and off, you can see it's totally lined up.
Nice.
The eyes might be a slight bit off, but for all intents and purposes, that's fitting and that's on. This is just a very simple Cinema 4D render. I'd like to put on some of these like a very glossy, reflective texture, because I find that the sculpture will absorb some of that. So it looks a little too shiny, it looks a little too glossy here, but that kind of, you're overcompensating, so when it lands, it sort of blends with the analog of the real thing.
That's cool.
So yeah, with that little simple camera move, also what I'm doing is I'm only rendering it out, let's say I'm rendering out like a 6-second animation. This animation is going a lot slower than it did. I'll rather just render out like fewer frames with the lights moving around faster in Cinema to get the render out quicker. And then in Topaz, I'm just slowing it down by 3 or 4 times.
Interesting.
So that you're
using
like,
Topaz to slow it, like to add more frames, basically.
To add more frames and to sort of, you can do that in batches. So you put all your 3D in there, all your 3D is moving way too quickly for what you want, but you're saving a lot of time by batching it at the end and just slowing it down like that.
So cool.
So if I just switch the layer on underneath and turn on a Luma key here, now my Cinema 4D render is revealing what's inside the layer underneath.
Nice. Very effective.
So yeah, it's simple, it's effective. You can go to town with different transformations and the way the sculpture like appears in Cinema 4D, but often I just find stretched for time if it's one of these scan and run gigs and stay up all night rendering. So let's quickly hop over here and see if anything's ready. Almost ready. And then we can just see how these loops turned out. I've got Midjourney here. I don't use it as much. I find it's difficult to make it conform to the input image. This Leonardo just gets it locked. Like with these two things in place, it's super tight. Nice. Okay, so this one's ready. Let's just download that one, and that one should be ready real soon. Now, hopefully you can just throw these into the timeline and hit render, and you've got yourself a perfect loop. So we got this one and that one, throw them down there. I'm just going to render them out and hope for the best here. Let's see what we get. Okay, so let's see what that looks like.
Wow. Damn. A lot of light, a lot of glowing lights. Interesting.
Yeah, a lot of glowing lights. Let's just see how it behaves. Sometimes you're getting really cool things straight out the box, and sometimes you need to go a few times with a different seed and curate and see what you get. Okay, that for some reason that wasn't a perfect loop. Let's just see what went wrong there. I'm not sure what went wrong there. Yeah, it should have looped cleanly. But anyway, that's the general workflow to do that. Let's see what these two guys showed up as. This should be interesting. That one's still busy. Okay, let's just refresh that. Okay, I'll come back and see when that is ready. Let's see how this one turned out. So yeah, it does a pretty seamless transition from look to look. You can either go from like a very radically different look to another radically different look, or you can keep the looks quite similar, and then yeah, it's a bit more of a smooth process. It just depends what you're going for. Okay, let's see. We've got this one and this one. Okay, that looks like a nice clean loop. You know, if you're sitting at Burning Man and you've eaten some
Damn.
mushrooms or whatever your fancy, and looking at this 15-foot high thing opening its eyes and checking around, I think it's going to be fun.
Super cool.
So there's one more thing I want to show you in Mad Mapper, which really helps with the real-time thing, which is something I definitely paid attention to when I saw you open your rig at Modem, coming off a long render bender. So let's see. I've got the 3D model in there. There's just a basic light rotating around there. Let's just stop that light. Wait for it to go run one more time. Let's stop it there and go back over here. So, you know, typically you're going to try and line this thing up as best you can. But the camera in Mad Mapper is different to the way Mad Mapper processes the spatial scan. So it's going to be a real trick. It's going to be a real trick to get these lined up in all the same places. You can maybe get the face right, but then you're going to struggle with the mushrooms.
Yeah, but there's always there's a bunch of intrinsic values attached to like, you know, whenever you do like Touch Designer has a thing called Cam Schnapper, which is also like, it's not spatial mapping, but it's 3D mapping, but it provides you a camera as well. There's so much intrinsic values outside of just like position, rotation, even a field of view. It's very hard to get it to line up, but you can check this out. You can see her face is a lot wider. The eyes aren't quite, I mean, you know, we can play with this axis here and we can try and maneuver this into place, but you know, really what I would hope for and reach for is like, where's the warping tool? You know, you don't have a mesh warp with a 3D model. So the workaround that I found for that is I'm just going to stick this it's close now, but it's not on. Let's just put that sculpture over there, and we're going to go here to our video output and just create an auxiliary, making sure that we are in portrait mode. Okay, and let's just put that new projector over there. And we're going to make sure our sculpture's nicely inside the auxiliary projector. And then we can come over to Mad Mapper, create a new quad. We got to just go into this auxiliary and make sure it's sending out to Siphon or internal loopback. And then in the new quad, I'm going to grab that auxiliary. Let's just see. Wow, for some reason it's really, really small. Okay, let's bring it up. If I just kind of eyeball it, get her face in there, get the size right. It's getting closer, but you can see that the issue with Mad Mapper is it's seeing these mushrooms in a much wider field of view. These mushrooms aren't in the right place. Yeah, because they're lower.
But now that we've got this as an actual image quad, we can go in now and we can say, let's mesh warp this thing.
Gotcha. Now you can warp it as you would.
Now we can finesse this thing into place. So that's kind of the only way.
Real-time lighting and a 3D model. That's pretty sweet.
We switch this back on. We get the lighting going again.
Nice.
And
you
get the
general
idea. Yeah, I've had to use this workflow just to create content on the run. You know.
On the fly. Yeah. So cool.
So,
I love that. I love seeing these type of little tidbits into these workflows that you're like, okay, I know MatMapper, I could do this, I could do that, and then you're like, well, can you do this? And you're like, well, I can't because it's not warped, and you're like, well, actually, you can.
Exactly. Yeah, and then you can access all the effects. You can
Yeah,
access the cosine, which is just a beauty. I don't have a mask on that now, but now that lighting is happening with that rainbow thing, and put this
nice,
on blue and brown, and maybe send
sick,
this over to the same oscillator.
nice.
So now we got the best of both worlds. We got the 3D
Yeah,
lighting, and we have the
so cool.
cosine color palette just wrapping onto that.
Super nice.
And
Really
yeah,
cool.
and that's the basis of it. That's a simple version. But that's much of what I wanted to share with you.
Hell yeah. Well, thank you so much for sharing all of this with us. It's super fascinating to see these really intricate workflows and just kind of seeing how, how you're using them in this fashion. This. So, yeah, we kind of touched on a bunch of different topics before, and we didn't dive into the juicier ones. I think kind of just to start off this section, um, I'd love to talk to you about. Well, first of all, actually, before I get into there, I didn't. Do you have kids?
Yes, I do. I've
Okay.
got
Okay.
two kids
Okay.
running. Well, one's running around and one is crawling, just beginning
Nice.
to crawl.
Hell yeah.
And
Okay. So
yeah, man, full-time dad, part-time visual dude. That's my vibe now.
I love it. I love it.
It's
Yeah. I mean,
real.
so
It's really real.
oh, dude, it's so real. Yeah. I mean, definitely. Like, let's infuse some of the kid aspects into this as well. But like, what is your relationship? Just to start off, and just to get into like a little bit of a space. What is your relationship with ceremonies, with altered states, with kind of the more higher dimensions of reality?
Hmm. I mean, it's formed a pivotal part of kind of my visual journey, going
Mm.
back, yeah, pretty much going back to when I moved to Cape Town, 2005, which is when I
Mm.
first encountered ayahuasca, sat with
Mm-hmm.
ayahuasca for the first time. I actually met ayahuasca in San Pedro on the same weekend.
Nice.
And yeah, it's been pretty wild. It's been a wild ride. I mean, you have visions, you see things, you hope like hell that you can bring some of it back and infuse it into your work, patterns, colors. You get ideas, but you definitely get the sense that there's more to this reality than this physical part that we interact with every day. The spiritual ether that manifests all of this.
Mm,
So ayahuasca has been a huge part of my journey, as have psilocybin mushrooms. And yeah, it's informed my direction over the years, and yeah, big part of my process. Let's say it like that.
that's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I would assume from your work that you have this kind of connection or some sort of affinity to these things, and just talking to you now and also in person, we spoke a little bit. You know, it's clear that you obviously have an affinity to that as well. So yeah, I'd love to talk about ceremonies. It doesn't have to be pertaining to art. It could also just be pertaining to life and um,
Hmm.
your experience with them. And I know that I don't know if you still do it, but I did see on your links that you have something cacao ceremony, sound healing kind of thing, which I think is really awesome. I love cacao. We did for our wedding. We had a really big party after the wedding, and then like a psytrance party. Obviously, Israelis got to do a psytrance party, and we did this. We wanted to facilitate everybody's experience, so I bought a lot of drugs, like all types of different types of drugs, but I also didn't want like things to be like a little bit scattered. So our shaman lady who our neighbor, she had the idea, let's have a ceremony at the beginning, and everybody can kind of like make their intentions, and then everybody can go and do whatever they want, and she'll hold the space and all that. And like we decided to do like a cacao ceremony because we didn't want to do like a psychedelic, like a too much of a heavy thing that people might be hesitant or might not want to do it. And we wanted everybody to kind of partake in this beginning opening ceremony. And it was so powerful. The cacao is so heart opening and so grounding that, her experience in like after we spoke was like that was one of the hardest holding spaces I needed to hold because everybody was so scattered and there were so many people. But she said that like having that like tether of the original like medicine really helped her like keep things stable. And and thank God nobody had any crazy trips. I mean, everybody had crazy trips, but nobody had any bad experiences, so that's good.
Yeah.
And it was great because everybody kind of got to do what they wanted to do. Somebody wanted to do this type of thing, somebody wanted to do this type of thing. That was totally fine, everybody's happy, but we had this like nice overarching connection. And I really love cacao. I've sat with it so many times now. I'm a little bit on a coffee train right now, but I've been really heavily focused on drinking cacao in the morning instead of coffee, because it provides for me like a very similar tool, but it's a very different effect, if that makes any sense. So I really enjoy it. But yeah, I guess just trying to get to the place of like ceremonies, like they're so important. I feel like in a day-to-day life, not even to do with psychedelics or like out of body experiences. It's just more of like an intention setting kind of thing, more of like a prayer container, and a community container as well, for sure. A ceremony with people is very powerful. You're getting some sort of spiralized kind of intention up, and it's being emphasized by many people. And I think when it comes to electronic music parties or raves or underground scenes, it's very easy to see the correlation between a dance floor and a ceremony, or like a dance floor and an altar, or a dance floor and a stage and an altar. I've had many people on the podcast, and there's always this kind of interesting I don't know,
Crossover.
Yeah, definitely crossover, but actually the opposite, like where there's people that are very unspiritual, or they don't want to be considered spiritual, much more like math or like smart or logical kind of understanding of things. And then when we start talking, it's like very clear that their outlook is actually more akin to a spiritual outlook. But because of this, like the nature of the world we live in, God or whatever, these kind of things are a little bit poo-pooed, which for probably good reason. I guess my point with that is just I'm happy to have you on that I can actually talk about these things with.
No, it's good to have these conversations. I find some interesting things about ceremonies, like particularly with something like ayahuasca. And if my memory serves me correctly, your chat that you had with Bert Veracruz, shout out to Bert, a rad
shout
guy.
out. Such a dude.
Do I remember correctly? You said to him you hadn't yet sat with ayahuasca. Is that right?
I've never sat with ayahuasca. I'm very connected to Wachuma, to San Pedro mescaline kind of energy. I've smoked DMT many times, but I never sat with ayahuasca. No, I have not yet.
Okay. Yeah, it's an interesting one because you'll definitely feel the calling. If something arrives in your life and there's an opportunity and you feel that calling to it, to do that work, and you commit to the person, the facilitator, and you pay your money to book your spot, things start to show up in your life before the ceremony, like work you have to do, things you maybe need to look at. And it's like, once you commit to the process, the medicine sort of arrives beforehand, as if to show us time's not a linear thing. So that's always been an interesting one for me, to kind of feel that calling and to take notice of what's happening in your life at that time and the process you need to go through. And then also the fasting, watching your diet, going into it nice and clean. And, up until the moment you actually sit down and drink the medicine, like you realize that treating your day or your week or your every day of your life like a ceremony is beneficial, like you just said, setting an intention, creating a container. It's easy to forget these things in the hustle of daily life, but I get reminded each time I go on that kind of journey and that path that, yeah, the medicine's working long before you ingest it.
For sure.
And it doesn't give you always doesn't give you what you want, but it gives you what you need in that moment, So I've had some really profound experiences with it. I've drunk more times than I can keep count of. I've been to Peru a couple of times, and it's not uncommon to go to a place and you have like 2 week stay there and 5 days on, 2 days off of ceremony. So
Wow.
there's like 10 ceremonies in a row there. And actually in Cape Town, the one time, let's say 2014, this was right between Africa Burn, where I collaborated with Daniel, and later that year, Boom Festival came along and became a thing for me. And what happened in that ceremony was usually you offered a glass of medicine, and my sort of experience leading up to that point was like you have one or two, maybe three glasses of medicine, and like the fireworks and the rock and roll only starts happening around glass two, like the latter part of the ceremony. But for me, on this one occasion, right towards the end of the first glass, I had a very, very vivid vision. It was like a very profound moment. Like if I was to describe it to you, it would be like I was in a dark room, and for a split second in my mind's eye, it was like somebody took a flashlight and ran it over this object, this sculpture, this it looked like a totem pole almost. That was just out of my mind's eye, like I couldn't quite see it, but I had a glimpse of it as this flashlight, like a DMT light, I guess, like flicked itself over this thing. And I was just like, whoa, that was pretty strong. Like I don't know what that was, but I felt it was significant and it was important, and it was like very it had like lots of big details in the bottom, and as it got higher and higher and higher, the details became more and more intricate. And I didn't understand what I'd seen, but I knew it was like, okay, that's new. Like, let's take notice of that. And interestingly, I had a second cup, and like pretty much from that point on, my ceremony was kind of on the way down. Like I peaked in that moment. All the juice got used up. And fast forward about 3 weeks later, I met up with Daniel Popper, and he pulled out his little sketchbook where he does all his previs and he puts his ideas down. And he showed me this sketch of something that he was working on for Boom Festival. And I saw this thing and I was like, wait a minute, I've seen this before. I recognize this. I had this in my vision. And he starts telling me about what he's going to get up to at Boom and how he's trying to arrange it so that I can come and map this thing that he's working on. He's building a totem, animal like totem for the two entrances to the main dance temple. And I just had no doubt in my mind that it was going to happen. There was problems with the visa. There was like restrictions on budget. Was I going to get a flight or not? And none of this was of any concern to me, because I'd already felt being there. I'd felt what it was like. And fast forward a couple of months, I showed up at my first Boom, arrived at like 4 o'clock in the morning, and people were just cooking with building, because you build at night because it's so hot during the day. And they were frantically building these totems on either side of the dance floor, and I ended up projecting onto them like 7 nights in a row. And like each night I projected on this thing, I was like, this was my vision. Like I had this thing, it was shown to me. So that was one of my first experiences where I realized like there's a lot more going on in terms of the material world versus the physical world, and to kind of just trust the process as it unfolds. Yeah.
What an awesome story. I feel like there's probably so many of these that people don't even connect the dots to, or maybe the vision wasn't strong enough that they could connect those full dots. But the feeling of what you said, like once you like decide you're going to go and pay for the ceremony, and like you make the intention things start happening. That is like, it's so, and it's not like, we're not just saying it. This is like a very spoken about kind of understood phenomena in the shaman world, when it's like that there's like a process, right? There's like a calling, you accept the calling, and once you accept the calling, it's already starting, kind of thing. It's already like the process is already there. So I think it's like I felt that many times, but it's like a retrospect. You know, it's hard to focus on it when it's happening. It's much more, oh, okay, I get how that connected.
Yeah.
Which I really love those feelings. Yeah, I've been reading. I've been doing a course actually. It's this amazing channel. I want to shout out Esoterica on YouTube. It's this guy, he's Professor Justin Sledge, and he basically takes a very anthropological slash theological slash archaeological view on different esoteric ideas. So, whether it's like magic, whether it's, Kabbalah, I said it's such an American, Kabbalah, whether it's, like witches and, Crowley kind of stuff, or even Egyptian, very broad. But awesome. Like he has this whole thing about origins of Yahweh and kind of like, looking at it at a very like a didactic kind of view, historical kind of view, but he's a spiritual and religious person. So you're getting this kind of like unbiased, filtered thing, but with the, from the mouth or from the kind of like psyche of somebody who understands these things on like a higher level or something like that, maybe, which I find very nice of a balance, because it's not a rabbi. He's not like giving me like the rabbi thing. He's giving me like his scientific thing, but he is a rabbi in his like mind. You know what I mean? Or like,
Yeah.
So I like that kind of connection. Anyway, so he has this really cool course that he just started about the Merkaba mysticism, which is kind of like the precursor to Kabbalah. And it's, based on writings from like they're it's questionable when they're from, but it's either from 200 300 BC up to 500 after Common Era, and it's just like so, and it's a precursor to Kabbalah. It's a precursor to a lot of Abrahamic mysticism, Abrahamic religion mysticism. And what my point is that in the main books that we're looking at are one book is called the Heichalot, which is like which translates to palaces, and the whole Merkaba mysticism is around the idea of these like four figures. They're rabbis, but he thinks that maybe there weren't rabbis, but anyway, they're told as from the perspective of rabbis that would do all these practices, and these practices allowed them to enter into different levels of palaces of God, eventually reaching the God palace. And once you reach the God palace, you can do all these things, and it's like a video game. It's like this crazy, 2,000-year-old video game, because I guess when they were kind of in their minds in those times, they didn't have video games to kind of compare to, but it's such a fascinating kind of a text, and he brings a bunch of other texts that correlate and look at and kind of like corroborate on the kind of original text from different eras in time, which is also interesting to see how people throughout time connect to this specific practice. And the practice is all breathing techniques. It's fasting. There's no mention of entheogenic plants or anything like that, although I did ask him like what is your take on that, and he's like, it's very possible that knowledge is just lost, or that that the translation is different. Maybe like when we translate breathing technique, they're really talking about breathing shit into their noses or whatever it is. I don't know. He didn't know either, and he said that it's less he doesn't really care really what the actual process is. It's more of like what the actual result of their process is. So anyway, so the whole thing is about these like palaces and going into the palaces, and every time they're talking about these palaces, I'm like, oh, this is like so akin or like so related to like the idea of like light palaces that is very like surrounding like ayahuasca and kind of like almost indigenous kind of ideas of like what these places are that you're going to, right? It's like these like very obvious like realms that are like almost inside of an architectural space that is made out of light. You know, that's kind of like, I don't know, at least the way that a lot of the you know, Andean kind of Peruvian kind of San Pedro lineages talk about the spaces that they're going to. It's all like light palace language. And I just found that so interesting that, like, you know, these indigenous cultures have these relationships to these ideas of light palace, where you have this completely other modern Western you know, I guess semi-Eastern, I guess, you know, like the Levant is kind of Eastern, but, you know, still kind of like westernized, modern, you know, spiritual, esoteric kind of ideas that have the same imagery, the same conceptualization of a light palace. So for them, it's like, you know, whatever, they're meeting Yahweh and it's God and whatever, and there's angels and stuff, but it's so fascinating how that kind of is all connected, you know? And it's like, it just kind of re-strengthens or strengthens the concept or idea of these other dimensions that exist around us that are always there, but are just accessible through different means. Yeah, I just find it so fascinating. And I'm fascinated by the Merkaba mysticism because I use a lot of Merkaba imagery in my visuals. And I just want to understand it more. You know, it's like my lineage, it's my ancestry. I just want to like get more deeper into what it means. And it's very lost. It's a very lost kind of thing. Only 20 or 30 years ago did the academic, I don't know what the word is, but the academic people decipher that these texts are not actually like in anthropological stuff or in theological studies. There's like two types of text. One is like a text that's pertaining to like a song or a psalm or a prayer, and one is a text of like a you know, this is like a description or an analogy or a story or like a map or something like that. And like you have different types of texts that are kind of like, you know, throughout the Bible, throughout theology. So only 20 or 30 years ago did they shift the Merkaba mysticism from a you know, a poem or you know, a prayer to this kind of like higher kind of idea of like an outline or like a, you know, a blueprint or something like this, which is so cool because it means that they're kind of like accepting. There's enough evidence and enough things have been found to accept that this is not just a story or a poem. It's actually, you know, on the level of like a Bible where it's like, here's a code, here's like a thing, you know, which is, I don't know, I think it's super cool.
That's super interesting, like the access codes.
Yeah.
Yeah, when you
Something.
when you sit with an indigenous shaman, like, well, typically it's actually the shaman that drinks the medicine in a typical setting and not the patient. So the patient just sits in front of the shaman and the shaman drinks the medicine and goes to the spirit world and figures out what's wrong, you know, and, you know, retrieves their soul or finds the problem with them. But I find myself time and time again in familiar places. Like, oh, I've been here before, you know, I'm back here now. Okay, I know this terrain. Let's explore a bit more. And what's really interesting is the medicine songs that they sing. Um, they are designed to, you know, either bring on the purge, or bring healing, or, you know, you go through peaks and valleys in a journey, and it's all connected to the song, and the you know, those typical ayahuasca patterns that you see on all the textiles and the weavings. That's actually like a musical notation. I sat with a lady once and she sang a song for me as she traced the lines on the cloth, and then I understood, like, okay, that's how they pass the knowledge on from generation to generation of the medicine songs. It's through these geometric patterns that unlock these places where the healing can all happen.
The Icaroses.
The Icarus, exactly.
I also
Yeah.
read somewhere, I don't know how accurate it is, but I read somewhere that women in the tribe don't actually drink the medicine, and they're the ones that do a lot of the art and singing. And it's like they don't actually drink, but they're so connected to the spirit that they can download all these things.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's crazy, you know, like to think about that, like in a modern kind of guide or eye.
Yeah. No, totally. Yeah. I've got a cloth just next to me. I wonder if I should quickly
Please.
grab it and show it to
Yeah,
you.
please. I'd
Yeah.
love to see it.
let me see what I can bring in here.
Nice.
So yeah, over here.
Beautiful.
Um,
Ooh, it's a nice big one.
so yeah, it's quite a big one, and I've actually
Nice.
projection mapped this one.
Hell yeah.
Let me just get my cable out the way here. Oops.
Beautiful.
So yeah, this has got the kind of serpentine energy thing going. And the lady that made this, when she traced these green lines, she was singing her song to me. So these green lines here represent the song. And then let's see if I can bring this in here. Over here, you got the ayahuasca vine over there. And yeah, you can't see all of it, but in the middle, you've got the chacaruna leaves. And this is actually the recipe for ayahuasca that is passed on in this cloth.
Amazing. Amazing. What a beautiful piece.
Yeah, so one of the one of the things that happened to me with the medicine is I found this cloth in Peru, and just immediately knew I needed to buy it and bring it home and work with it in some way. But it took about 5 years of ceremony for me to understand how to projection map it. So what I did is I did the spatial scan, of course, and got the blueprint, and then dissected the cloth.
Wayne, something's popping. Is that on your end? I'm not sure.
I don't
It's
know.
like an audio
How
pop.
does that sound?
Something's rubbing against
Oh,
the
there we go.
microphone.
How's
maybe?
that? No. Is everything
No.
cool now? No? Popping?
Something's popping. Wait. I think it's gone away. It's the ayahuasca is just like
Oh, okay. Yeah. It's making its presence known.
for sure.
Yeah, so I just kind of reverse engineered the cloth, thread by thread, separated each thread into layers, and then set to a medicine song, kind of went on this journey where, with breath work and like group flow and a medicine song and recordings from the jungle, and just created this 10-minute projection map piece, which goes onto this cloth. And I've shown it after a few ayahuasca ceremonies, and it's kind of like it just helps integrate all the downloads and sort of settle the vibe. And yeah, it's been quite a cool project, but I could only unpack what I needed to do through ceremony. So I wasn't able to create the work in one go. It took about 5 years. Yeah.
Wow. Do you frequently go to Peru to sit and drink?
No, I haven't
No.
been for 10 years, 10 plus
Okay.
years.
So it was a period.
That was that. Yeah, there was pre-kids, when I was a
Yeah.
free agent and I could just move whenever I wanted. But
Sure.
yeah, it's still present in my life, maybe once or twice a year.
Mm.
But yeah, it's been a great help and a great teacher. So I would say to you, if you have the opportunity, especially if you've visited the DMT realm, DMT is very short, very intense. Oftentimes when I've had it, I don't even remember what happened. It was just so hyperspeed.
Totally.
But the ayahuasca is kind of stretching that experience out over a 6-hour period, and you can navigate in that space. It's not always intense. There's a lot of insight that can come through. So,
Nice.
yeah, I hope you find the right space
so too.
holder to take you
I,
there.
I do want to kind of like go and do it in the original place. It's just, speaking about kids, the ultimate psychedelic experience. It is tough to find the time. Yeah, I guess that's a good shift into kind of kids, and we should keep the ceremony kind of altered spaces kind of thing open, because I think it pertains to really anything we're going to talk about now. But you just mentioned to me that you have 2 kids. I have 1 kid. I was joking, but it really is a super psychedelic experience. I don't. You said 1 kid is still crawling, 1 kid is walking.
Yeah, 7 months and 4 years old. Yeah.
Okay, there you go. So I mean, you're going through it again now. It's like the my kid is 2.5, almost getting close to 3, and it's just watching the development in general is super trippy, like how they kind of start becoming a little person. But now with the language, it's such a huge like difference, because like language is so imperative to human consciousness. It's like crazy how those two things are so connected. um and like you can see, like, before the child starts talking, all of a sudden there's like these flashes of like awareness of, like, they start understanding things, they start seeing things, and then the becomes want this, and then this becomes I want this thing now, and it's so crazy, that trajectory of, I don't know, chicken or the egg situation, but like their personalities develop with the language that's coming, and how those two things are kind of like interacting with each other is just so fascinating. And like the more present, I was talking offline with you about this, but I'm trying to like take a little break from smoking, and I do this every periodic time. But the more my child is becoming more and more and more like aware, I'm like, okay, I want to be more and more present to this experience, because it's so mind blowing, and I just find it like crazy. Yeah. What has your experience been with this? I'm sure it's
Yeah, like you summed up so nicely, just super psychedelic, way more gnarly than you can ever explain to somebody in
for
words.
sure.
And I don't know if you are thinking about having a number two at some stage, but yeah, if you are, you get ready, my man, because
Unf-
it's not like 1 + 1 = 2. It's like 1 + 1 = 5, and that is the best way I can say it.
yeah.
But it's a blessing, and it's incredible, and
Mm.
yeah, you co-experience life with them, and you have these shared experiences where you begin to re-see the wonder in things, and you see things with fresh eyes, and it's super special. Yeah.
Nice. I want to have more. Unfortunately, it's not up to me, but we'll see. Time does its thing. But
Right.
yeah, I can imagine it's way more difficult. Definitely, just the one was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. The lack of sleep, the butting heads with your partner. It's like it's really quite. There's nothing to get you ready for it, really, and it seems like no matter who the person is, or how the person's relationship is with the other person, everybody goes through this kind of like extreme difficulty period. Whether it's
Yeah.
difficulty with yourself or difficulty with your partner, it's like so seems like it's part of the whole experience of having a child. um, I just find it so interesting that it's such a I think it's like a Joe Rogan quote, but like he talks about like when he had kids, he started looking at people as kids, and like it starts making you realize that everybody's just like everybody was a little kid at some point, and everybody was hopeless at some point, and every single person that's alive today had somebody that cared for them, because if they didn't, they would be dead, right? Like it's just like this is the reality. If you are alive today and you're over the certain age, you had somebody that took care of you. Um, it's such a great perspective, and you can compartmentalize it abstractly without kids, but I think once you go through that experience, it solidifies in such a strong way that concept.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and it also gives you a greater appreciation for your parents and what they went through,
Oh,
and
wow.
bringing you through, to the place where you are now. You just have no idea until you're in their shoes. So
Totally.
it's a great mirror. It's a great mirror.
Mm, mm.
Yeah.
um what have been some things that you have experienced, or challenges that you've had with your child? Doesn't have to be too super personal, just out of interest, just like your take on things.
Sure. Well, I mean, our first kiddo arrived right smack bang in the middle of the pandemic, scamdemic. I mean, choose your word, but just having made the choice to bring a human into a world when the world was doing that
Mm,
was yeah, it was pretty gnarly and pretty real.
wow.
So yeah, we just kind of stayed out of public places. We didn't want him to be exposed to people wearing masks, because
Mm,
part of the brain development is seeing faces and developing facial recognition and that. And
totally.
it was just a really strange space and time to be born into. So we were very yeah, we took lockdown very seriously. We cocooned hard, and yeah, we came through the other side. And yeah, now he's got a brother, and the dream is that they're gonna look after each other and run around and keep each other entertained eventually.
Mm.
And yeah, life is hard, but life is good. Yeah, like your life is your teacher, and nothing. I don't think anything else I can think of could cause you to evolve so rapidly as a person, as having kids and having
Yeah,
that responsibility. Yeah.
totally. So true. And it's like the reflection aspect is so powerful. The more I like sit on it, the more it like really helps me realize like that there's this like reciprocal energy of like, I would imagine, well, anyway, I believe that like there's like these I believe that the child, whatever you want to call it, the soul or the entity, whatever, chose me and my wife as its parents, right? Like I think that we are choosing kind of where we go. I don't know how the mechanism of it works, if it's a list on a computer or something, but I don't know. It might be super abstract, but I know that there's some sort of soul connection, obviously, like on a biological, physiological level, but also like on a esoteric kind of like multidimensional level. And like the more I kind of like accept the fact that that this is the reality that I'm in, then the more the difficulty, like if he's having a tantrum or going through regression or something like that, the hard parts are like you said, like these teachers, right? Of like they're super strong reflections of you, of what I'm going through right now. Like I don't think you have to like blame yourself for anything, right? It's not your fault. Like it's not like I think it's a little bit more like deeper than like the connection with like a horse. If you ever experience horses, they're like reflection. They're like mirrors. If you go to a horse and you're all stressed, it's gonna be stressed. If you go to a horse and you're calm, it's calm. It's like a very strong mirror reflection to the person in front of it. So I think it's like maybe like a multi-dimensional aspect of that. But you know, it's like these moments. It's really like teaching moments. So instead of like being like frustrated by the tantrum or frustrated by like no daddy, no daddy, no daddy, is like what am I getting here? What is happening here? That's like this little thing that's so attached, so close to source, spirit, other dimensions, and now is like having to be in this body, but he chose this thing. There's something there to like for me to be able to like internalize and like get outside of just like parenting and teaching. Um, and it's so hard to kind of be in that space. Like I don't want to think that I don't want to say that I can do that all the time, but whenever I manage to like almost like do some mental gymnastics, then it like really helps me like receive something from it. And recently, I don't know, there's been this like recent moments where this is like super esoteric, but there's been these moments where like he'll look at me, like in my eyes, and I'll look at his eyes, and there's like this locking kind of moment, and it's like I can see, I can see something there that's like not human, that's not like physical 3D, and it's more than just like when you look into like your lover's eyes or like somebody that you love and like a brother or a mother, and there's like this like really strong like soul connection. It's almost like because he's so young and little, like there's some tether to like something else that's still there, that's very present, and like I can kind of see it sometimes. I don't know what it is, there's no vision or any like thing, but it's a feeling of like something behind the eyes, or the window. I don't know what it is. That's like there and very clear. Have you ever seen that?
Yeah, it's trippy.
Yeah,
It's very
it's
trippy.
trippy as fuck, dude. It's so crazy.
Yeah, and if you really want to bake your noodle, you got to try and take that thought experiment further of like, okay, he chose you as his parents, but then did you choose your parent? Like, who started the choosing when? Did he choose your parents in order to make you happen? Where did that all happen? It's like, it's a
Oh,
hard
that's
one
a
to wrap
good
your head
one.
around.
That's a really
Yeah.
good one. Wow, that's a really good one. I haven't thought about that. Fuck, because if he chose me, that means that there's some plan of something that came before. Wow, that's, and also like, what is choosing? Like when you're in some, star being, multi-dimensional, non 3D thing. Like, is choice even like a thing? Like there's like so. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
does an asteroid choose to hit an Earth and become a planet? I don't know. Like, how does that
Right,
even
right.
work?
Yeah, well, have you
So
ever been to Bali before?
no.
So Bali's a really cool place. I mean, mostly just because of the vibe of the people there. But I would say 95% of the island is Bali Hindu. So it's like a
Mm,
branch of Hindu specific to that group of people. The rest are Muslim, and if you just go across the water to Java, it's like mostly Muslim. So the highest concentration of them, the Bali Hindus, are in Bali.
mm.
And for them, reincarnation is just a matter of fact. Like it's not a
Right.
discussion, it's not a debate. It's just pure matter of fact. And we were taking a taxi ride once, and the taxi driver just told us straight out that his son is used to be his grandfather. Like that's just how it is, and that's what it
Yeah.
is.
That's what it is.
And when you have enough people living in a consensus reality like that,
Mm,
then that consensus reality becomes more physical. It
totally.
manifests, and you can feel it there. So, yeah, the women do ceremonies all day long. They do ceremonies in the morning, in the lunchtime, and in the evening. There's offerings all over the place, and their overarching belief is that if they don't do these ceremonies to keep the gods appeased, then the world falls into chaos.
Wow. Wow. Wow.
So it's like a super interesting place to visit, and as a Westerner, and to be immersed in for a while, because you can feel it. It's tangible.
Mm, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had this experience in, I grew up like Orthodox religious, so spiritual experiences were kind of baked into my reality as a kid, even though the spiritual experiences are like, shadowed or whatever, compartmentalized into like religious boxes. But and I never really realized it until really later on in my life that I had, as a kid, had these crazy out of body experiences, but never realized what they were. I'm just like praying in synagogue, but like what I remember feeling or what I remember seeing was like a massively out of body experience. But I went to Hampi when I was in India. I guess also pre-pandemic. Um, Scandemic. I like that one. And like right before, and I went to Hampi, which is like this. It's like essentially the birthplace of Hanuman, who is the monkey guy. But
Hmm.
they are big Ganesh, believers there. It's like this whole kind of like, how the places change over time. It's very interesting through a lot of killing and war, but that's just, I guess, how it is. And there was two experiences that I had there that were so crazy. Like, one was just going into a temple, and obviously white with dreads. Like I'm greeted in some different fashion. I'm not like a normal traveler. Um, and yeah, like the priests, were just like kind of like, come here, like making me follow them basically, and they brought me into like a little, there's like a line that people stand in line and then sit in front of the priest and give an offering, and then get a dot, and then they go out of the line, and it's like a really long line. It's all day. So they like skipped me to. I didn't do anything. I just walked into the temple, and they brought me, and they're like skipped the whole line, took me through the whole line, sat me down, and the guy's like, speaking Hindu to me and whatever, and he's like, he points at the offering. I'm like, I don't really have any money, but whatever. Here, I put like a little thing, like a crystal, a little bit of tobacco, like you just like whatever I had in my pockets, kind of thing, and it gives me a dot, and like I walk out, and as I'm walking out, an elephant, like the elephant that's like part of the temple, is just like walking through the temple, like they walk the elephant through every once in a while in the temple. um it was just these like sequence of events. I just landed there after like a 12-hour bus ride, and on the bus ride I almost died, and all these like classic India kind of things, and I just land, put my stuff in the hostel, walk to the temple, and all of a sudden I'm getting like all these like these like Hindu kind of things. It it was so like trippy, and I felt so freaking high the whole time. And I wasn't high. I mean, I was high, but I wasn't like high. Um, and it was just like every experience was like, oh my God, I'm like so like smart, like huge beam, you know? It was so crazy. And the second one was we went to like a temple of Ganesh. You know, there's like a huge like rock statue of Ganesh, like huge. Um, and I just felt this really strong, like very clear presence that I felt many times in my life, whether it's, you know, in Israel is all over the place. You feel these presences of like spirituality and like something, you know, it's like Jesus land, it's Bible land, it's all these things over time. And I just felt this really strong thing, and, you know, touching the rock, like, you know, it wasn't like a movie Hollywood download, like, you know, but it was like a feeling of like what's the word, like affirmation that like that the ideas that I have and the thoughts that I have or the beliefs that I have are like legit, you know. It was like this affirmation of, yeah, it was very small and like tingly, but it was clear what it was. So yeah, I just feel like these, you know, you can have these experiences all over the place, all over, at any time, in any place, and it's really, you just gotta want it. You gotta wanna be open to these experiences and like shed the like the Western ideology of feeling of like everything is physical and we're all on this like scientific plane and there's everything's explainable and all these things. So yeah, I don't know. You reminded me of Hampi. It was such a crazy experience, that place.
Yeah, I've heard people say that about India, that they just feel super energized and high, and like it's quite difficult integrating back into, yeah, our Western matrix, you know. Very
It really
different
is.
reality tunnels that we have on this in this part of the world.
Totally. Do you live in
Yeah.
the city or live in like a rural area?
I'm lucky enough to live in a pretty rural area. It's in a valley, and I'm surrounded by mountains, and our place is on a river. So the bottom of our garden extends onto a river, and yeah, it's a really beautiful and blessed to be living here. You know, surrounded by nature, and
Mm.
Cape Town is a
Well,
beautiful place. If you haven't been, I don't know,
okay.
maybe you can pull some strings and somehow get into the modem Cape Town bandwagon. I don't know, but yeah, when you get the chance to make it down here, you won't be disappointed.
Hey, Wayne, you got to pull the strings for me, my friend. I definitely try to pull the strings all the time. There's a small talk of something to happen, but adjacent to you. I don't want to actually say anything, but close to South
Okay.
Africa. So hopefully, let's see what happens. We could talk about it after. Anyway, yeah, I really want to come to South Africa. I'm super super inclined. I have a really good friend there, Sarin. We've been friends for many years, and she's super cool spiritual girl, and she does like a lot of really awesome stuff with local indigenous communities to kind of, you know, bridge these gaps and stuff, which is really cool. um, just to, you know, I think just to wrap up this portion, but living in a rural area helps, I think, kind of detaching yourself from the matrix. You know, I think it's something to do with the way that nature is such a like, it doesn't fall into the category of like good or bad or like, you know, right or wrong. It just is. It's a very like balanced, kind of almost zen like kind of thing. And when you're surrounded by that and not surrounded by beep beep honk honk blah blah blah, I think that, or
Mm,
you're not even beep beep honk honk, it could just be you're in an apartment building and there's just so many people around you. um, you know, I think that there's something about being around a rural area or in nature that helps you remember the connection, or, you know, helps you remove the facade of the matrix, like you said. Do you have this feeling as well?
yeah, definitely. I mean, if I'm not behind the screen pushing buttons and listening to computer fans going, then I'm out at the river, digging sand and making rock sculptures and it's a therapy. It's a counterpart to the technology, I find. So you got to have a balance, you know.
Mm.
And yeah, it's even just walking on the beach barefoot is like super powerful for the grounding
Wow.
and just for the sound of the ocean, you know. It's a medicine.
100%. 100%.
Yeah.
So reaching the end here, and it actually is kind of apropos to that what you just said. Um, flow states. I think we kind of touched on many things that touch flow states. I'm sure you're familiar with flow states from performing, and I mean probably from dancing or from many things in life. Um, so I guess I would love to like hear your opinion about flow states, kind of like what you think they are and where they kind of meet you, and also. Uh, and I'm sorry, I just asked a question, and I'm going to go into a rant here, but just to preface it, um, AI and flow states, because we were talking a lot about sitting and prompting, and I was mentioning that I've been doing a lot of agent work. I've been getting into some crazy flow states with the prompts. Like there is like a moment where you do it, you wait, and like when you're waiting, I'm almost like a little bit detached, but I'm somewhat pulled in. But then when the flow starts to happen and like I get the result, I test the result, I go back and forth, it's like a fucking flow state like that I would have when I would be, I don't know, like getting deep into some 3D work or something, like or performing. And I like realized it a few days ago, and I'm like, this is crazy that just from this like such a weird reciprocation, I'm getting this really interesting flow state. So yeah, I mean, like, what's been your take on flow states in general, flow states with AI as well?
Yeah, what an interesting fusion of question and yeah, past, future, present. Yeah, flow states are obviously very important for what we do. Like we spoke about, I guess you get different types of VJs, and some VJs are quite happy just to put a loop on and kind of sit back and watch what happens. But my own approach, and I gather yours and a lot of the guys I work with, is to just be as hands-on as possible, and
Mm,
get into that state where you are anticipating what's coming next with the music. Um, for me, watch humor is quite important to that process,
mm,
maybe with a little bit of cannabis in the mix, just as
mm.
a flow state trigger. Not saying that
Interesting.
it needs those things to get there, but it certainly helps, and it certainly helps with like all night mixing endurance. But
Interesting.
yeah, flow state for me, there's some reliable flow state triggers in terms of musical artists that I listen to that
Mm-hmm.
will reliably like get me there, even if I've listened to the mix 100 times. I know it's gonna get me into a state where I'm amped to work and to do things. But
Mm,
interestingly, I've been doing a lot of that vibe coding recently with Claude and
mm.
yeah, just running things on the cloud and taking comfy UI workflows and getting custom nodes written up to do things
Mm.
that I wanted to
Nice.
do. And it's definitely there's a flow state there. It's funny because I also watch myself just not. I don't want to become addicted to having this AI thing in my
Mm,
in my sphere. So
mm,
it's kind of like just paying attention to that feeling. But yeah, I find when I'm doing the vibe coding and like going into areas that I'm not so familiar with, music doesn't necessarily help me. Like I actually need silence to go into that space where it's a flow state. And yeah, definitely a clean mind. Backing off from the coffee helps to stay in that flow state, to kind of not
mm.
plateau and then crash.
Yeah.
But yeah, if I'm doing a mapping job, if I know I've got like 2 days of renders ahead, then yeah, I need that flow state to get it out, and music will help me get there, I guess, because I'm able to. It's almost like driving a car. You're not necessarily thinking about how to drive the car,
Right.
but you're so familiar with your workflow and the steps you need to go through, and it's about just putting on some good music and getting the right lighting and yeah, finding that flow state because it's addictive. You
Totally.
feel it's like you're sitting outside of time, and yeah, it's a wonderful feeling. I wish I could tap into it more readily, more often.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's a lot of Western ideas about it. There's a lot of how to get into a flow state. There's a lot of books. I forgot the main guy who came up with it. He's like a
Yes,
Hungarian
it's
guy. It's got a weird
my
name.
chicks might.
Yeah,
Yeah, he's
something
got a
like that.
funny name.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Which is the irony of the guy who comes up with the flow state has a funny name that you can't think of. That's just too.
Yeah.
It's just too funny.
It's like my chick me high or something like that. He's
Yeah,
saying, right?
yeah. It's something
Something
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah. I'll find it. But I was, um, I had this conversation with this amazing artist, Rika, from Romania. I guess she's not from Romania. She's Hungarian. But we were talking about flow states, and we got into this conversation of like, like a collective consciousness idea, of like that like all the ideas are floating in space, and you're kind of just pulling at them, and the flow state is like a direct access to that, almost like some sort of like a tether straight to this collective consciousness idea. And I've been trying to like visualize this sometimes it's hard because when you're in a flow state, you don't really always notice that you're in it. And then all of a sudden it's 8 a.m. and you're like, oh, I guess I was flowing like crazy over there. But every time especially when I perform, because when I perform, it's a lot easier for me to recognize that I'm like super vibing, because a lot of people are in the same state and there's so much going on that it's easy to just like be like, oh, focused on what I'm doing, but also be in that state at the same time. It's like an in-between place. So this recent summer when I got to go perform and stuff, I was kind of trying to be like, while I'm performing, while I'm in the flow state, while I'm like super vibing, like try and think like, trying not to think about what I'm doing, right? Just be in the thing, but try to like notice where it's coming from, whether it's like in my vision, like is it coming from here or something or whatever, or like in my head, like where does it feel like the idea to move the thing like this or click on the thing like this, is it coming from somewhere? Unfortunately I did not get any good answers, but I just thought it was a really fun experiment to try, of like, can you focus enough on the flow state while still being in it? Because it's almost like if you focus on it, you might get out of it, and find or feel where like the thing is emanating from, because it doesn't feel like it's emanating from here, it's like, if anything, it's emanating inside of your body in some way, like you're just kind of vibing in it. I think like probably, marathon runners get into flow states when they run a lot, like the methodical same motion kind of thing, which is also like when you're dancing. If you dance a long time, you get into this like state of like, this movement. Yeah, I don't know. But I feel like when you're working on visuals or coming up with ideas or performing, it is physical, but there's like something else that's happening. That's, I don't know what it is,
Yeah, have you ever read Stephen Kotler? An
No.
author called Stephen Kotler. Yeah, check him out. He runs a project called the the Flow Genome Project.
Okay.
And they've got programs that like train you how to get into the flow state. And
Yes, I've heard of this guy.
he's
Yes.
got a couple of books like Becoming Superman and Noah Country, and he gets into the science of it. And I think based on what you're saying now, I think you'd really vibe with his work.
I will
Yeah,
definitely check it
Stephen
out.
Kotler,
Which
very
one do you
interesting.
recommend,
Well,
book
his
wise?
new one, Noah Country, is very good, and Becoming Superman is also very, very good.
Okay, I'm gonna check that out for sure. Thank you.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love talking about flow states because it's such a not like a understood but not understood thing. And when you look at the indigenous kind of things, or like the more ancient kind of ideas, it exists. It's existed for a very long time. This idea
Mm.
of this heightened state, or lowered heightened state. I don't know what the best way to explain it would be. Well, yeah, I mean, is there anything you want to share with us before we head off here? It's been such a nice time talking to you, Wayne. I will definitely have to have you back on at some point. I feel like we just scratched the surface of a lot of things. But is there anything you want to share with us before we get out of here?
Yeah, no, it's been really good to chat to you, man. It's been a good build up. I love what you're doing with the podcast. I think it's really
Thank
cool
you.
to assemble all of these people together in this space. I mean, like I say, having two kids, I don't have that much free time for long form podcasts such as this. But I have caught some of the greats. I've caught Julius, the very first one, and
Hell
Bert,
yeah.
and I really enjoyed Isosceles the other day, and a
Nice.
couple of others. And yeah, I'm learning a lot. It's really good to see beyond the work you see online, it's good to meet the person and sit with them. So yeah, it's been really cool to sit with you. Thank you.
Wow, what an episode. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you to Mantis Smash for the intro and outro music. Thank you to Sophie Holder for the amazing internship helping us with all the episodes. And thank you to the guest for coming on and spending time with us. See you next week.